This episode of Shockwaves is sponsored by Universal Studios' Halloween Horror Nights in Hollywood. Immerse yourself in a living, breathing, three-dimensional world of terror. Now through Saturday, November 5th. Visit them online at HalloweenHorrorNights.com/Hollywood to learn more about the event and buy tickets.
Okay, and welcome to episode number 22 of Shockwaves. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Galluzzo. Sitting with me, Mr. Elric Kane.
Survivor.
Survivor of what? Oh.
I survived many things this weekend.
Hold on. Don't do it.
I'm not going.
Let me intro everybody else first before you immediately dive into your very lengthy story.
No, I'm going to keep it short.
Jumping ahead.
I'll keep it short.
Rebekah McKendry.
Hi, I don't have a lengthy story to open with, but I want to hear Elric. So.
I can't wait for this. And Mr. Ryan Turek. Welcome.
Hello. I do have a lengthy story, but I am going to reserve it for later and take my turn.
I need to tell everyone that I survived the Blumhouse party.
What'd you survive?
I survived the Blumhouse party. That's what I was talking about.
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Blumhouse 2016.
That thing was kind of nutty.
Party. That was pretty fun.
I was pretty impressed with Ryan's Michael Myers until Douglas Tate came around the corner.
Yeah, but you know what?
He was a lot taller.
I designed to put the party together, so that blows Tate out.
Yeah, but he used my torso.
That's what I did.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
I donated a torso, guys.
And as you all saw, we were the Blair Witch 3.
Yeah.
A costume idea we thought up last year, not knowing there would be a new movie.
Yeah.
And way less cool when Bekah would leave.
Because
it was just two really dirty-looking grunge rockers.
The second Bekah
left
left
at midnight, guys.
No, but like when we weren't together at the party, like somebody ran up to me, he's like, "Are you Kim Thale from Soundgarden?" I was like, no.
Rob had this amazing mullet.
It was beautiful.
God, I wish it was real.
He had this amazing mullet, and I'm sure some 20-something model walked up to him and he was like, "What's that like contraption in your hand?" And he's like, "It's a camera." What's
16
that?
millimeter
16 millimeter?
Yeah, legit.
Yeah, it was good.
It was a good party. I liked it a lot more than last year's, even though last year's was good too, but this one just was
All right,
better.
let me tell you something about it. Just to give the listeners a little history.
He's lifting the veil here.
Yeah, let's give the listeners a little background on the Blumhouse Halloween party. So I started my time here at Blumhouse almost 2 years ago, experienced my first Blumhouse Christmas party, and I was like, why are we having Christmas parties, like and holiday parties? Like, why are we doing this? So about April of last year, 2015, I said, "Jason, why are we having holiday parties? We should have like a big Halloween party." He goes, "Buddy, it's good. That's a good idea. You're in charge." And I was like, "Oh." And he was just, he gave me a budget, and I did my best with last year, and I was a little overwhelmed because I didn't know how to do sponsors, I didn't know how to put all this stuff together, and we used our lot, talking to the fire marshal and all this stuff, and then this year we knew what to do. I had some help in Alex Renteria from our front desk. I had and more help from Phil Sims and Olivia and a bunch of staffers here, and we put together something cool. And it was lots of hay and lots of corn stalks and lots of pumpkins, and it was funny because once it was a full moon the night of the party, when the sun set, the moon came up. Our neighbors next to our building came down with their daughter, and he goes, "Hey man," he's like, "I gotta say, you guys killed it this year. It looks really good." And I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Last year we walked by and we're like, we know what you do. We know you make scary movies." He goes, "Last year we walked by and we're like, nah, not so much. The lot looks empty. It's just a lot of lights and a lot of people."
Yeah, it's still a little too modern. Like a nightclub.
It was really well lit last year, and there were cupcakes.
Yeah, but what do you have to do to get invited to this thing? Because we're telling it to a bunch of people that can probably not get into our party. So, Ryan, can you give tickets away to this thing or what?
Well, we can certainly discuss that next year.
That would be fun.
You know what? It was funny because I did run into there's a Blumhouse super fan. She loves all of our films. Her and her boyfriend, they're from Arizona, and they're fantastic. And she ran into me. She was like, "Hey," and I was like, oh, hello. And she goes, I ran into Jason and he invited me. And I was like, fantastic.
That's awesome.
Great. Because, I mean, like, it initially began as just like it's a company party, It's like, it's supposed to substitute the company holiday party, but it became a larger event. So still trying to figure out who, it's an industry event,
Yeah, it's like an industry thing.
It's for friends, family, staffers, friends of the, people we've worked with.
Okay, if you haven't angrily turned off the podcast by being like, screw them, man. I can't get it.
Sell out.
Like, I invited all of our freelance writers that are LA based. I invited all of them.
Let's see what we can do next year. Maybe we could do like a cool giveaway.
Is
or
it
something like
in
that.
fact true that your party had a bigger budget than the first paranormal film? Because that's what I've been hearing. All right,
true.
there you go. And less return. All right, fair enough.
That's probably
You're a
true.
saint.
But yeah, and
was
then
good fun.
Yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah,
it was good fun.
a blast.
And great costumes. I mean, I saw some really impressive things. In the Mouth of Madness was a good one.
Yeah.
A great Nightbreed, Decker.
My favorite
which
was Fatal Attraction, and then the bunny was with her.
Somebody came in as a woman and somebody was dressed as the bunny.
And Steve Jobs, by the way, I don't know if you knew who this was. That was
I saw that.
Steve Jobs was Mark Neveldine of the co-director of Crank.
Get out of here.
I kept looking
Wow.
at
Allison Lohman was standing next to him.
He
get
freaked
out.
me out
Anyways,
because
we're
he looked so much
we're
like
getting
it.
super inside and
Yeah.
like super industry here.
Let's get back to talking about
horror movies.
Yeah.
So Saturday, the
Yes.
day after a day of rest, I watched a lot of stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just
right.
I started the day off with a little Friday the 13th Part 4 just because I woke up and I was like, I need some Friday the 13th Part 4. But the new thing that somehow, it's a movie that escaped me and I was never able to fill that hole. It was Alice, Sweet Alice.
Oh, yeah.
I've
yeah,
never
that's a good one.
seen that film.
Alfred Soul.
And that movie feels really long, but it's really, really messed up.
Yeah.
It's a really screwed up little film because it's a great misdirect. The movie is all one big misdirect. And it plays, it doesn't know how to, it straddles this weird line between weird 70s horror and classy 70s horror.
Well, it almost is more gialli, like even though it's
Yeah,
an
with
American
the
film.
mask and the raincoat
noir
and
mystery.
everything.
Well, that
There's
almost
also
feels
stuff,
to
yeah.
me, I mean, like it's got, it's definitely got these kind of like really classy 70s, tropes. And then all of a sudden you got like the neighbor downstairs, with the shaved eyebrows being real creepy. And I was like, it feels like something from another movie.
Little grindhouse in there,
a little
yeah,
grindhousey.
I swear there's nothing greater than for any horror fan than it's for some reason slashers more than any. If you discover one that you hadn't seen that's good, even like borderline good, it's the best feeling. I swear.
It's been a good year for
like
discovering
Blood Rage.
discovering slashers between
Yeah.
Slaughter High and this, So that was
Blood Rage. I mean, I
was
loved
great.
that when we saw that. It was so much fun.
Here's my quick Alice, Sweet Alice story. So a couple of years ago, Castle was doing this episode, the TV show Castle was doing this episode where it was supposed to be set at a fan convention. And so rather than actually like fake the booth, they called up a couple of local companies and were like, can you set up booths? You get to be on an episode of Castle. And so they were like, set up a Fangoria booth. You get to be on an episode of Castle. So I'm there and I'm setting up my Fangoria booth to be on the episode of Castle and everything. And the production designer for the show comes up to me and he goes, oh, you're Fangoria. I've been in a couple of those. And I was like, oh, for set design? And he goes, no, I directed Alice, Sweet Alice. And it was Alfred Soul. He's like one of the main production designers. He was on Castle. I'm sure he's on something else now. But yeah, it was pretty cool. So I got to have a good conversation with him.
I've never looked him up if he did other films. I have to look it up after
He
the show.
did. He did the 80s film Pandemonium, which no one discusses, for good reason. It was supposed to be a horror comedy. It starred Judge Reinhold, and it was kind of like he pulled all these SNL cast members to make this horror comedy. It was supposed to be like a 1950s kind of, I'll call it Grease as a slasher, and it's really quite abysmal. It never got released to DVD. I don't even know if it made it to VHS.
Damn, you like Siri.
Yeah.
I posited a question in my head and she had an answer.
And his cousin is Dante Tomaselli, who is remaking
are you
Alice,
serious?
Sweet Alice, who has the rights to it. Yeah.
Weird.
I feel like the Alice, Sweet Alice remake has been around like as long as Killer Clown remake rumors. It's just like on and on and on. And then the other thing I should say I watched is I revisited Wolf with Jack Nicholson. And
Peeing on shoes.
What
Yeah,
an
you're in a
oddball movie.
It's a weird one.
Such a weird one because it's like it's trying to be such an adult-minded thriller, but then
With the ridiculous conceit. Like,
well, I mean,
the
it's
kind of movie it is.
yeah. Well, I mean, like Jack going full wolf and walking through Central Park with like these long mutton chops and like fangs. It's a weird.
It's pretty strange.
I
haven't seen this in theater. I remember theatrical and like thinking. Even then I was like,
Every once in a while I'll dust it off just to watch to see how crazy. Like
I remember Spader being good.
Spader's good. Everybody's good. Michelle Pfeiffer's good.
Yeah, Michelle.
Everybody's really solid in it. But the funny thing is like it was just a weird time in Hollywood where they were like, you know what, Jack Nicholson? That guy's a wolf. Hey, let's make him a wolf. Yeah.
I remember at the time, like, buying into it and being like, yeah, it was an okay movie. Like, I didn't reject it. Now I kind of chuckle when I hear it. But at the time, I was like, it was okay.
That's the usual kind of response. Like, when you first saw I think everybody first saw it. And then in hindsight, they were like, oh, there are some weird decisions being made.
Yeah.
The very idea to have A-list horror movies is weird anyway. Like when everyone's an A-lister in a horror film and the director's an A-lister and the budget's A-list, it's always a little weird because that's not usually where horror lives.
And I don't blame it, but I looked at Bram Stoker's Dracula as the inciting factor for a lot of those in the mid-'90s because you had Bram Stoker's Dracula had
Sleepy
such a
Hollow.
And yet he did that like an indie though, like that really behind the scenes couple was kind of running an indie show.
And that's where Mary Shelley's Frankenstein got it wrong, because they just really went for it. It's this beautiful kind of extravagant production, and then they were like,
Frank Darabont will tell you his script is much better than
I bet.
Kenneth Branagh did too.
But they were trying to figure all that stuff out, and that's when they were like throwing things at the wall just to see what.
Well, it's funny because they pair those three together: the Coppola, Dracula, the Frankenstein that Kenneth Branagh did, and Wolf. And I think I heard a story. I've never actually seen Wolf of those three. Because Rick Baker did Jack's makeup, but I heard that Jack was like, "You'll never beat American Werewolf in London," so we're not even going to go anywhere near a full transformation. But I think that's probably more a studio thing. Like, no, you can't hide his full face.
Yeah.
But they're so incomparable because you go back to Coppola's and it's like a real work of art. Besides some of the casting, Keanu and that are a little modern, but it just is a beautiful thing. And the way they did the effects and him and his son, it's one of those pretty ravishing films.
Yeah, but it's not scary. That's the funny thing. Like, Wolf is not a scary film. Mike Nichols cannot shoot horror. Any of the attack sequences are so horrendously misguided in terms of just even style. It's just a weird.
What is weird? Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, did you see the new horror film by the guy who made The Graduate? I mean, like 40 years before. It's like, that's kind of a weird idea,
Yeah.
But anyway, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Very weird. And then the other one was Frighteners. When was the last time you guys saw Frighteners?
Frighteners is
Not
great.
since the
It's
90s.
been years, but
I still have love in my heart. Don't go against us.
I was actually, you were in my head the entire time I was watching it. I was like, I bet Elric loves this movie. It doesn't.
Besides some of the CG, but
the CG doesn't hold up at all.
Yeah, I know.
At all. In fact,
What about the moving walls? Because that looked pretty badass in the 90s.
It looks like Nintendo 64 graphics. It looks so bad.
But you know what holds up? My body is a temple of pain. Jeff
the
Combs
thing is,
rule.
the movie is like almost 2 hours long, wall to wall, and it's a wacky, weird movie, and it's written so well, like in terms of everything being set up and paid off, and the details of who's connected to who, and the backstory and all that stuff. Like, it's really, really tightly woven.
Wasn't it supposed to be a Tales from the Crypt movie? Yeah. And then what happened? Like, why didn't it?
I don't know. I think it was maybe Jackson just was like, screw it, I'll do it as an original feature. I'm not sure. Although I've never seen the special features on. I don't know if you had a blue of it, but I remember when the Laserdisc came out.
Yeah.
And one of my friends was telling me it's so extensive, and the reason it costs so much money is because all that stuff that's CG they built, and it didn't work. Yeah. Like, apparently there was a ghost dog, a fully animatronic ghost dog and stuff. I'm pretty sure it's probably on the Blu-ray that documentary.
It is, yeah, I think it is too. And I remember that Laserdisc that had come out because I remember watching one of the scenes on the Blu-ray, and it was like. That was at a time when they were dissecting it layer by layer. It was just Michael J. Fox walking through a door and the two ghosts following him, and then it would like loop. And it's like, and then we added this layer, and then we added this layer, and then we added this spectral thing. And, when you're in high school and you're watching that stuff, or you're in college, you just eat it up.
I also remember, obviously Jeff Combs is what I was talking about. I love him in that film. But Dee Wallace, I always think that was like the best last thing she did. Like, where she was just like dialing it at 11, but still committed all the way, and super fun.
And it was funny because I followed The Howling up with Frighteners. Like, I saw Howling at the beginning of the week, and then I watched The Frighteners at the end of the week, and I was just like,
Dee Wallace.
She's really good. Everybody's really good at it. They really did. Some of the background, some of the extras, some of the supporting characters,
like random New Zealand.
Oh, there are some really rando performances where you're like, oh, dude, get out of here. But it is Jeff Combs' best performance.
Yeah, it's so good.
You know what I think it was? because he knew it was a studio picture and he knew he needed to go all the way. Like, that's a Universal movie. He must have just gone, this is it. I better just like really play it up and really go for it.
And think how pissed he was after doing that with Peter to not get the role that eventually went to Dorf.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, he didn't even think he should read for it. I remember talking to him once. He goes, I didn't think I'd have to read for
which
it.
One?
To play what character is that? The Brad Dourif role.
He was going to play, I don't know, it's like Warts something or
some
one
fucking
of the Lord of the Rings movies?
Yeah.
And they asked him to come in, and he's like, but I just did a giant thing with Peter, and he had a bad day, and didn't, and suddenly went to, I feel bad for him, because he would have been so good in that world.
He's amazing on Star Trek, and it's along that same kind of character.
Under makeup.
Don't you bring sci-fi into this podcast.
I'm bringing it in. Actually, we have an article posting on the site tomorrow, the 10 goriest Star Trek episodes.
Yesterday. Getting in the back.
Yesterday. Thank you.
Humphreys, take it down.
No.
Alrighty. Well, let's talk about what you and I did last night, Elric. We went with Screamfest is officially underway as of right now.
Yes.
It is.
And Elric and I got to watch the new movie from Ricky Bates, Trash Fire.
Yeah. Ricky Bates Jr.
I think your tweet, which was also his favorite review of it ever.
Oh, nice.
What'd you say? You said Trash Fire is...
I don't even remember.
Is sad. No, you said... It's sad, shocking. No, it's funny, sad, and shocking, much like Ricky.
Yeah, I mean, watching him do a Q&A. His Q&A.
I watched him do the Q&A at Fantasia for it.
Yeah,
his Q&A
he's like, this is my favorite. He was like, this is my favorite review ever. And I was like, can we get that on the poster?
I feel like that's the first of his films. The first 30 minutes, like that audience was eating it up and laughing at every joke. Like it was an audience film, which I don't think his other films are. Maybe Suburban Gothic, wants to be, and it just maybe falls short because of the budget and stuff.
I'm sure Excision was, if you saw it in that festival setting.
I think that's a darker, but that's darker from start to end. This is definitely a comedy for the first 30 minutes and dark comedy.
It's real dark.
I mean, for couples, I thought the couple humor. I mean, Brian Collins, I kept hearing him guffaw every 5 seconds. I was kind of impressed how well it was playing the crowd.
That's the thing about Trash Fire that I really liked, because I saw it at Sundance, which I'm sure the reaction was radically different than Screamfest crowd. That's what I really was drawn to, is that he writes real couples.
Yeah,
the way couples really are, right
just
down to the minutia.
Just when you think they've broken up, they're just back in bed together, and then the next thing happens, and they complain and bitch, but they love each other. There's just a lot of bullshit that you have to get through in between. Yeah. And I really thought the first half was like easily the best work of his career, like just perfect. The execution of the first and second half is equally interesting, but it becomes a very different movie. You know, and dark.
He said they drive literally into a horror movie.
Yeah.
I thought it was strong. I mean, I love Excision. It's one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. Yeah. And I liked Suburban Gothic, but obviously it felt like he obviously didn't have as much money to do it, and I feel like the ambition was beyond what he had for Suburban Gothic.
Well, for me, that one is the horror stuff that didn't work. The humor stuff worked well.
I agree with that. Like, Trash Fire, I like Suburban Gothic more than Trash Fire, at least as like an audience screening. Like, I had more fun watching.
It's a lighter movie.
Yeah.
It has more hope to it than Trash Fire does.
Yeah.
Because Trash Fire is
gnarly.
I mean, I saw it at Fantasia, and there were gasps at moments, especially like some of the comments that some of the characters were making, just like single lines, and it would
That's what was so good about it.
We got such big laughs.
Honestly, I was thinking the whole time, is the closest I've heard to like Todd Solondz. When I first saw Happiness, it's got that tone, especially in the first half, the way people talk to each other. But I thought it was really fun. I definitely thought it was his like most polished piece as a filmmaker. He seemed in command of what he's doing. And
it's the one by far that I think feels the most Ricky.
Yeah, I agree.
Knowing him and kind of like seeing his career, kind of like how his films have developed over time. I think that sharp mix of like humor and oh my freaking God, I can't believe I just watched that, kind of blended together in the same scenes with literally just nothing dividing them. I think that's like pure Ricky.
Yeah.
So and it's the pure cinema of Ricky.
That's true. Well, my favorite, the Q&A was pretty out of control, but my favorite was when I guess somebody asked him, what does your mom think? And he's like, she's cool. She wants you to make like Lord of the Rings or something rather than this stuff. But and also it comes out November 4th.
Yeah, very
he
soon.
said it's VOD November 4th, so really soon.
Yeah.
If you liked Excision, I think you'll like this one because it's very much on par with that.
And here's the thing about Ricky is that he's growing as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of just the aesthetic of filmmaking, he's growing. But what's amazing is that it's Ricky. Like, when you watch a film, you can see the voice you can see his signature in every single frame.
Besides his dialogue, it's definitely the fact that he doesn't shoot coverage. And he said it, I was thinking the entire movie, and then he said in the thing, every shot's a 2-shot master frontal, like a the Coens or Wes Anderson, but done it feels a little different and feels very. So I imagine on a studio level that might be hard for him to maintain. If he makes a bigger film, but he hasn't really. It's not really a horror film. Like it's got some horror.
It's got horror elements.
I remember that there was...
You just don't know where to put it, like a lot of movies.
There was one shot where the couple was sitting on either ends of the couch, and he held that shot for several minutes. And you don't see that in a lot of films, but it didn't budge. It was just there. Because the focus was on the conversation, so you didn't necessarily pay attention to it.
Yeah, he's just letting the performances guide the film, and I think that's why they all love him. Yeah. The actors love him, and that's
why. Adrian Grenier was like, I was very surprised by how solid he was in that movie.
Yeah. He's surprising.
Also, Angela Trimborg.
She's the best.
She's the MVP in that movie.
She was my favorite thing about the movie. By far.
Really,
she was in, for people to know, she was in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. She's like one of the 3 main girls in that.
So she's one of the final girls.
So that film's also playing in the Knoxville Horror Film Festival, which me and Bekah are judging some of them. And I saw another one by them that's also in Screamfest, so I wanted to lump it in, called The Master Cleanse. And I felt similar in terms of another one that doesn't fit comfortably into being called horror, but you have nowhere else to put it.
Yeah.
Like literally, there's nowhere to put movies like that. They're cult movies.
Weird and awkward and kind of scary, but not horror.
Yeah, I liked it. For me, it wasn't as strong as Ricky's. Ricky's just had a stronger voice, but it was interesting as kind of a cute romance. It's the guy from Big Bang Theory. The director is Bobby Miller, I believe. But the only problem I have with it, it's kind of like people do a master cleanse. They go into the woods, and the idea is you're going to cleanse out, drink a juice, you're going to cleanse out your fear and all your kind of past trauma, and instead emerges some little thing that looks like a toad or a frog, right? And it's the expulsion of all your shit. Now, when Frank Henenlotter makes that, he's got fucking subversive edge. Mm-hmm. And for me, or Gwilliam, the short I loved last year, those things have this like really fucked up like edge, and they use the creature feature in that way. Whereas this is a nice movie, and it's cute and fun, and I liked it, but there's no subversion to the thing. It's just that's our excess.
Much edge for me.
Sounds like a little bit like Bad Milo.
Yeah, actually, that's the closest. And even Bad Milo's a little edgier.
Bad Milo's a bit edgier
because of the humor of Bad Milo's edgy.
Bad Milo's going for more of like a evil gambling kind of.
It's definitely got like more sophomoric side too than Master Cleanse. Master Cleanse, it's really clean and cute.
Yeah, and it's really well made. It's clean and cute. I totally agree. I think maybe as a 20-minute film, I would make more sense to me. But it's good. And then I watched a bunch of 3D at Rob G's. I watched just samples.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a waste of talk. We tried to watch the latest Underworld.
We failed.
And we lasted like 15, because I don't get those movies.
Rob doesn't get
these movies. At all.
I've seen them all, except for this one, and I lasted about 20 minutes.
And I think, we watched it, and there's a lot of murder happening. I was like, does she normally kill this many people? And he's like, no, I don't
Suddenly
think she
does.
just
shoots everyone and kills all the humans. And
maybe she got pissed off in the prior movie,
Did you guys listen to Evanescence while you were doing this?
No.
Were you wearing your affliction shirts?
You totally wore like some Hot Topic clothes.
Like affliction, like a little
affliction.
little
affliction.
I finally turned to Elric and I was like, you know what it is about these fucking movies? They take this whole werewolf vampire thing way too seriously. Yeah. I can't take them seriously. They're lichens.
And they don't look like werewolves. They look like what did they look like? Trolls or something.
They look like shaved apes.
Just paint your fingernails black and get back to work, guys.
But the only reason I mentioned is when he put on the mask. I've only seen The Mask, the Canadian The Mask 3D. I'd only seen it when Mike screened it at JumpCon on 16, so I'd never seen it in 3D. And the 3D is so fucking crazy in that movie.
Yeah,
like the sequence is one of the most like crazy Fulci Bava fever dreams you'll ever see. Just that part, and then the rest of the movie's pretty plunks along. So it was worth it for
the
that.
Mask.
I enjoyed that.
1-1.
And that's all I did this weekend. I did nothing else. I did not survive anything else.
Before we get into your thing, I want to finish our films.
All right.
So I'll go really quick.
Yeah. And I got TV shows.
Okay.
I'll end with TV, so we'll go perfectly.
Okay.
So I've been waiting a long time to see this. The Frank Langella version of Dracula from 1979. I'd never seen it before.
Oh, yeah.
I've got little blind spots when it comes to Dracula movies. And in the last year, I think I've mentioned on the show, I've been trying to see things that are like a little off kilter, not just the same retelling. So I love like Blackula and The Return of Count Yorga, because those are like different takes on the Dracula legend. Yep. But I'd never seen this one. And the reason I held off, I almost bought the blue, but everyone keeps telling me that, and I don't know the full story, but apparently either the director, John Badham, or the studio, when it went to TV and Laserdisc, they darkened the image to make it look more gothic. And apparently it ruins it because it's,
That's ridiculous.
No, seriously. So there's no home video version of the movie that looks like the way it played in theaters. But this played at the New Beverly, and the New Beverly specifically shows 35 millimeter prints. I've waited to see it this way because this is the original, untampered with version. And I thought it was great. I had a really good time with it.
It's a cool movie.
Very vibrant, very colorful, amazing John Williams score. Yep. The music is terrific. Yeah. And you know what? Frank Langella.
And a great Van Helsing.
Yeah, totally. Van Helsing was fantastic. Donald Pleasance is one of the main characters too. So the cast is great.
God, I don't remember him in that at all.
Yeah, he's Mina's. Is it Mina? Mina's father.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. So it's a cool little twist on it. Langella is great. It's funny. I just watched an early Mel Brooks movie with him in it, and I didn't I think of him as Skeletor from when I was like a little kid.
Yeah, he's always
and I only know him as an older guy. But now that I've seen him in this Mel Brooks movie and Dracula, I'm kind of like, oh, I get it. He's totally got this weird.
He had charisma, sexual.
This weird charisma,
then,
this weird charisma thing. So I thought he made a great Dracula.
I like him in Ninth Gate. Towards the end.
Oh,
He's a great bad guy in that. He's hilarious. Lights himself on fire.
Well, not even that. He walks into a cult ceremony like a boss. Right. He's just like, bullshit.
Yeah. That's a great opening. I love that.
Langella can get away with that.
Yeah, he's good.
And other than that, also, because of you guys, I signed up for Shudder via Amazon Prime.
Oh.
And initially, I went through featured movies, and I was like, oh, is that it? And then I didn't realize, every subsection has so much.
Oh, my God, yeah.
So it took me a while, and I added a ton of stuff.
Watch Fermat's Room. Still my favorite one.
All right, I'm adding that. But I added so much stuff to it, and I just really wanted something I'd never heard of that looked cool. So I ended up picking From the Dark. Just looked like it's like this girl in a cave, looked very Descent-like from the cover, a girl in a cave with a creature over, and I'm like, what's this? So I started. It's an Irish movie, and it had a very high rating. And it turns out it's directed by Connor McMahon, the guy that did Stitches.
Oh, yes, yeah.
But the difference is Stitches was definitely a horror comedy. This is more of a straight horror movie, although it does have a comedic tone because the couple, it's a very small movie. It's a couple that's driving, across Ireland or whatever. And they're great. Their chemistry from the moment the movie starts, they're really, really funny. And then a few minutes into it, they get stuck in the mud and kind of trapped. And the guy walks up to kind of like a house over the woods. And he stumbles on the owner, but the owner's suffering from a bite, and he starts to morph into the creature that bit him.
Oh, cool.
And the only weakness they have is light. But since it's nighttime, they have to find these challenges. There's one room that has light. If they want to move, they use their phones to kind of block it out. And if you get bit by it, then you start to morph into that creature too. So
isn't that like the conceit of the Hallow? Corin Hardy's movie.
Is that light that does that?
It's
no.
light.
No. The husband goes out
and
and he gets bit, and then he starts to slowly transform into the thing that's out there.
But
it's just actually an Irish thing. All Irish films
maybe.
have this.
but it's 2014, so kind of around the same time, if not before. But I thought it was really cool. I really liked it a lot, and in the same way that somebody like Chris Smith, who did Creep and Triangle,
Severance,
Severance. Every time he does something kind of interesting. Now this guy, between Stitches and this movie, I'm kind of like, I like this guy's stuff. So
I like the curated fashion of Shudder from what I've seen. I haven't signed up yet, but I was on it for that, where you get to try it out or whatever. And I love that they'll have people, come on and give their top 5. Or I think it's a cool way to run a program.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's $5.
Yeah,
it's literally. I saw somebody on Twitter ask how they can get it on Amazon. If you have Amazon Prime, you can go to subscriptions, and then you can just add it for an extra $5.
Yeah, and it gets charged automatically to my Amazon account every month, so I don't even notice it.
And I just did that with Stars too. It's just it's so
and it
easy
comes
just
right
to
up
point
as
and click all this
Amazon
stuff.
Prime for me now. They're just listed as Prime Shudder, so it's super easy.
And Amazon in general, if you haven't got Amazon, I'm discovering a lot of these old VHS gems on there streaming, and really pretty good quality, a lot of them.
Messiah of Evil was on there a couple of months ago, and we talked about how we saw Casted at Least Spell on there, and
that's right,
I've caught a few good things on there, and it's kind of what's missing from. And the point is, Netflix is fucking it. Netflix is great for new content that they make. I love that, but I mean, for old films now, I can't even find anything I want to watch on Netflix when it comes to horror. New dramas for sure.
No, I agree with you on that.
Yeah,
no, Netflix is like. It's library. It's every once in a while I'll find something and I'm go, I haven't seen that. What? Jesus, there was something that popped up there recently that I was going to watch, but then I turned to Hulu and I was like, or Hulu, Amazon, I think, and I was like, ooh, Poltergeist 2 and 3, and we've already talked about that. But I mean, the fact that those popped up there, their selection, and what's interesting too is I added Stars over the weekend so I can continue watching Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Yes.
Star's library is amazing. Like their horror library is really great.
I haven't checked that out.
But it kind of pissed me off because they had everything that I had literally kind of stocked up earlier this month. So I bought Frighteners, I bought Bram Stoker's Dracula, bought all stuff, and it's all there. Yeah. And I was like, oh.
Figures. That's all right. Well, and speaking of TV, since that's what Beck wants to talk about, I just wanted to mention quickly that Exorcist is still top notch.
Yep.
4 episodes in.
Yep.
Shit's about to go down next week, apparently, so I'm very excited.
Shit's going down every week. And,
yeah.
And it's just really... It's so atmospheric and it's so character driven and it's got like the it gives you the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, there are so many scenes, especially with the actual possession scenes when she's just by herself. Oh my God, they're so disturbing.
We were talking, me and Elric were talking about it when we went to the screening yesterday, that we've never gotten to see that angle of the exorcism where you get to see what the person being possessed, how it appears to them and how, that angle. And I
from
think
their
that's
perspective,
really
it's awesome.
Very unique and cool. Yeah.
And they definitely teased it and you didn't know what was going on and then it kind of got into it. And I just thought that was awesome.
Well, that it's an insidious haunting, not a, oh, you're just suddenly possessed. It's like, no, it appears to you as a nice thing. And then it gets closer and gets closer and suddenly starts taking you over. And you're like, I love seeing that story.
Yeah.
Well, and it also appears as a man in a suit, but then as but then you start to see the fringes,
and the suit gets
and
really
the suit starts to get a little bit smoldery. And
and also, why is a young girl attracted to an old, unattractive 50-year-old man in a suit? But it's like but there's something there.
Yeah,
it's because he's paying attention, and it's really well done.
Yeah.
Deviating really quick from horror, have you guys been watching Westworld?
Yeah, I love it.
No, I don't have HBO.
And best last episode, Neil Marshall.
Westworld is fantastic. Yeah. Talk about like just turning a movie that I kind of looked at and was like, oh yeah, look at that. It's like an old 70s movie.
I like that movie, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I
sexuality is good.
I grew up watching it, but I mean, it was the iconic image of that cowboy with his face torn off. But to turn it into the series that it is now, which is like this kind of hyper violent, fucked up Jurassic Park, it's really
that you don't, unlike Jurassic Park, which is just we created something and then it went wrong. That's as deep as it gets. This thing, we have no idea the depth of the story. It's like a mystery within a box and I have no idea.
We got done watching episode 2 and I was like, okay, so wait a minute, this is how it's going to all unravel. Ed Harris is going to be doing this. This is going to happen. She's going to become aware, and it's just like you have no idea. You know where it all wants to go.
But if you think we're talking about sci-fi, Episode 3 by Senor Neil Marshall, there's a sequence towards the end that to me goes full horror and could be pointing that a horror storyline is emerging from within the game. And so without giving anything away, it was awesome when I saw that. But I will say there's a person who has to go down a cave with a red flare, and I laughed out loud, and I straight away wrote on Neil's page is that accidentally? Because I swear it was in the script. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, bizarre. But it's a great. It's you don't get to see again a B concept, which it was in the 70s.
Exactly, that's what I was going to B concept,
done A level, like Game of Thrones. It's got that kind of production value, so it's super impressive.
That first episode's got so much money behind it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this one, guys.
And a lot of skin.
Yeah.
What's up next for you, Bekah?
Okay, so I all I watched this week was television. Well, I'll start with a made-for-TV movie. So I was on the Canceled Too Soon podcast, hosted by 2 absolutely fantastic Blumhouse writers, Winnie Seibold and William Bibiani. And I was on their podcast, and their whole concept is that you talk about things that were canceled or ended very quickly. And so for the Halloween season, we talked about Crybaby Lane, which is the banned Nickelodeon special. The special ran in the year 2000, and then it completely fell off the face of the earth. And then, a decade later, all these people pop up on Reddit and are like, oh my God, do you remember that absolutely terrifying Nickelodeon Halloween special? And apparently somebody reached out to Nickelodeon, and Nickelodeon gave multiple responses. First, they were like, we forgot about it. We completely forgot we owned it, so we never aired it again. But then there was this, a lot of parents complained about it, so we banned it.
Wow.
Regardless, they started rerunning it a couple of years ago, so it's apparently not banned now. But it is, it's a kid's movie, so when you watch it, you're going to be like, this isn't much. But if you watch it from a kid's perspective, it's seriously kind of fucked up. So the whole concept is it's Frank Langella.
That guy. Getting mileage this episode.
He plays the world's worst undertaker in town, and he tells the kids in town this story about the farmer who gave birth to 2 twins, Siamese twins, and he was embarrassed by them, so he locked them away, and eventually they died. And so he did, like you do apparently, sawed them in half, buried the good one in the cemetery and the bad one on an old dirt road. And if you drive out that dirt road, you can still hear the kid crying, which is why they call it Crybaby Lane. And then the story evolves from there. But yeah, for more info on this one, definitely check out. I did a big article on it on the Blumhouse site called like Nickelodeon's Band Special. And also check out the Cancel Too Soon podcast for info on that one. But yeah, it's definitely worth watching if you're kind of, and there's a lot of internet lore behind it that I couldn't substantiate or prove in any capacity, but I still kind of just said, you know, these are rumors, like that for a while Nickelodeon destroyed all the copies and didn't want to admit they ever aired it and things like that. So it's got some good like urban legends behind it. But my big jam for this week that I absolutely loved and like I cannot wait for the next episode, Candle Cove.
Oh yeah.
My
so
God.
good.
The first episode was so good.
Channel Zero.
Channel Zero.
Channel Zero.
The sci-fi.
Okay.
The series is called Channel Zero, but they're adopting the name Candle Cove because that's the story arc for the season.
Yeah, that's a creepy.
I thought it was every
creepypasta.
episode was going to be a new.
No. It's
cool.
like it's like an American horror
Oh,
story.
great! All right.
The first episode, the second one is sitting on my DVR for me to watch when I get home tonight. But man, that first episode, I have no idea what went on, but I was terrified and riveted the entire time. The whole time I was like, I have no clue what is happening.
I made the mistake of my girlfriend and I just try to fall asleep watching stuff sometimes, and like we put that episode on episode 2 when we passed out right away just because it was a long day, and I realized I just did a disservice to that show because I was like, no, this is a series much like Hannibal that you can't just put on the background and let play.
There's too much weird shit going on.
You literally can't like be futzing with your phone. You need to pay attention to the visuals and watch the show.
Yeah.
And pay attention to the details. It's so good. I mean, like what I wound up watching episode 2, I was like, this is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Like it's experimental weirdo horror. It's so weird.
The whole
So it's more horror than sci-fi.
It's definitely
it's horror.
It's total.
Pure
It's straight
horror.
horror.
Yeah.
The whole concept, the plot in 2 seconds.
I don't want too much.
Is and it's the same as the creepypasta. Is that a long time ago there was this TV show, this really weird kind of puppety, scary looking creepiness TV show that used to run on this like local station. And then all of these kids died mysteriously. And then the TV show vanished. And then it's now come back and kids are starting to disappear again.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the whole concept. And one of the guys who was like his brother died in the original rash of killings or dead kids. He comes back to town because he feels like a connection going on. So that's it.
And is this the one Don Mancini has something to do with?
Yeah. He's one of the writers on it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's bizarre. It's twisted. It's disjointed. Like you don't know what's real and what's not. But I was like the whole time I was like, this is just awesome. So,
yeah, it definitely warrants your attention. I want to I watched the first episode and it was. I sensed that it was so dense that I was missing material, so I want to go back and rewatch it along with the second episode, which aired this week, and kind of really, because like Ryan said, it seems like one of those things that really warrants your attention.
Yeah, I definitely would not be like, and I'm infamous for this, like where I put something on and then I'm like prepping the site, writing articles, like I watch things, I multitask. But this, as soon as it started, I was like closing my computer. There's so much in it.
If you multitask, the cinema police will get you. They got Ryan on lockdown last week. They will shut you. And now they're after him for that disservice he did to the second episod. At least you admitted it on public.
There are movies you can multitask during. Like if I'm putting on The Dorm That Dripped Blood, I'll multitask
I don't know, Bekah.
What?
I don't know. There's a lot of movie police at New Bav. They'll come down on you.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I'm going to send them over to you.
Okay, but then the other one that I watched this week, which I was kind of shocked by, is a couple of my friends had told me to check out Falling Water. And I assume that they just told me that because, well, it's kind of horror, and Bekah seems to like horror, so you should check out Falling Water. It's on USA. And it's kind of their horror show that they're releasing this year.
Really?
I really liked it, and I was not expecting that. It is the first episode. I'm only on the first episode, so I don't really know what's going on yet, except it's 3 characters, so it's kind of episodic where you're following these 3 characters around, but you get their dreams, and their dreams are blended into their reality. So you don't know what is real and what is in their dreams. Like there's a character that I don't know if she actually exists because one of the characters dreams about her, but then sometimes she'll appear and you think it's like real life, but you're not sure. And then you kind of get the idea that that's kind of the story is about dreams. But that's all I got so far. But there's some seriously weird stuff in there. I will say it's a slow burn. The first 15 minutes, I kept debating turning it off because I was like, it's like a Fulci movie. It's dream logic.
Would you turn off a Fulci movie, though?
Depends. I have to be in a mood.
There are 3 Fulci police in here.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Hey, I'm the one who watched. I watched Murder Rock a couple of weeks ago.
Did you get that picture hanging up in your office yet?
Did you see it?
Oh no,
right next to my zombie picture.
Right.
Yeah.
That's his birthday present from the Jump Cut Walls. Fulci directing.
Nice.
Yeah.
From the Murawski archive.
Oh wow!
Because it's really hard to find photos of those guys directing for some reason.
Yeah.
So, but I loved it. It's definitely dream logic where the character will be, some type of important plot point, and then water will fall down and everything will go to slow motion, and it just gets really arty. But yeah,
you sold me on the sci-fi show. I don't know if I'm in.
I'm going to stick with this one and see how it goes. It's right now it could go awesome or meh. So I'm kind of.
If by episode 3 it's still great.
Then
I'll be like, okay.
I think we should also mention that Wolf Creek is now airing. We had Greg McLean on a few episodes back.
Where?
You know what? It says it's Pop. You know what? I just checked my cable network
Pop.
And I found it.
You found Pop?
I guess, or whoever's running it.
Yeah, I guess you just searched the show. And
I just searched on my cable box and found the show Wolf Creek. Right. So I DVR'd it.
It's
the first
definitely worth watching.
But yeah, no, I just wanted to mention because we had a great chat with Greg a few episodes about it, and now it's timely, and you should go back and check that out.
Yeah,
and a great song on that trailer.
Oh,
that always gets me going.
Yeah.
Just quickly before I go into the story, that Martyrs episode of the Projection Booth came out yesterday. Super nerdy, but if you're interested, it's literally an analysis of the movie, beat for beat. So don't, if you haven't seen the film, absolutely don't listen to it. The co-host is from the Faculty of Horror, that kind of more academic horror podcast, a Canadian one. They do Diabolic Magazine. So it was me, her, and the guy, Mike White, from Projection Booth. It was really cool. I had a new appreciation after it. And then I did something called The Tension Experience, which I was talked into doing on the show. Let me just say,
hold on. Have you been reborn, Elric? Did you ascend?
For the next 5 minutes, I have only one goal.
Did you join Darren Bousman's cult?
I have only one goal in the next 5 minutes, and that is to convince Mr. Ryan Turek to do this. That is the only purpose of my conversation.
Wow.
Oh my God, Elric's been converted, guys.
Let me start by, let me give you a little thing. I've done a lot of cool stuff this year, 24, the New Bev, all-nighter, a lot of fun horror stuff. This is the best thing I've done this year, or maybe even last year. This is not Darren's movies. This has nothing to do with Darren's, the parts of his personality that are in Devil's Carnival or Repo. It's none of that stuff. This is very restrained in that sense, but completely experiential. Look, anyone who was listening to the episode where Rob will attest, let's be a little honest here, I didn't even want to do that episode.
No, Elric was against it because he was like, I don't know if anybody's going to listen to us talk about
no, that wasn't
experience.
Why. I didn't care.
Yeah.
And it has nothing, I love Darren stuff. I didn't care about these kind of haunts because I've never done one and wasn't interested. Especially the blackout model is literally the thing that puts me off this stuff. The idea that I'd get abused, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to do that. So I was so convinced by kind of their interest when they're on the show that I was like, all right, well, I'm at least interested. I was lucky enough to be given a free invitation. I got some weird email from somebody saying the creator has asked for your, invitation. So what I'm not going to do right now is tell you what I did all the way through because I think it would spoil it. But I took out Josh Forbes, the guy that Contracted to, super nice, funny guy.
Are you going to tell us the first part at least that you told me?
Please.
You have to tell them that.
Okay, I want to hear about this because
but that might put them off.
No. But that was specifically for you. You have to hear it.
You have clearly been programmed. I want to hear about
how
this went down.
The cool thing about this is every one of your senses at some point is used, and it's very much about the senses. And from what I can understand for him, it's, he maybe Darren's a little ADD, and all over the place. He now looks at 30 monitors and all these storylines at once and is controlling them all with a head, an earpiece. And these actors are phenomenal because they're just real. It's real life happening to you. It's literally the best thing. The way I put it to a friend was like, oh, I just got to be in a movie for 2 hours and I got to partake in the storyline as it happened. But what Rob wants to tell you, which is equal parts humiliating, is that you show up. The start's fairly typical what I would have expected, which is, you start somewhere and, you're put in a hood and you're put in a van and you're driven around a lot and you get disorientated. And then you get taken to this place. So I'm in this waiting room and it's very stylized. It's like a Lynch waiting room or something. And, an older woman kind of taking, I don't want to spoil the story parts of it, but at a certain point, we're warned before wear comfortable undergarments because they, you might get changed into something.
Have to.
So I was in a room with the 8 or 10 other people, and everyone's stripping down into their boxer shorts or whatever to change into something that I won't say exactly what. And out of nowhere, the main character of the story, who's this very attractive blonde actress or cult leader, depending on what you want to believe, in this tight-fitted dress, comes in and goes, actually, you come with me. And I go, oh, boy. And I go into, and before this, I had to fill out a whole form about what you're comfortable with, what things you'd like, what things you don't like, just all the stuff, information. It's part of the game, though. You're actually being questioned by a person. And one of the boxes I said, are you comfortable with other people's nudity on screen? I said, yeah, all right. Are you comfortable with your own nudity? I'm like, hell no, you know? She takes me to the room next door while everyone's changing to the thing, and she makes me strip naked right in front of her as she crosses her arms and watches me.
Completely naked or down to your skivvy?
No, she says, take those off too, and I just looked at her, and we're in like a little alley thing that's like...
And Elric was like, safety word, safety word!
I was literally like, oh, wow, this is... And then so she just... But her eyes are unblinking, and they're just looking right at you, and in the back of my head, all I see is... fucking Bowsman, like rubbing his little hands, going, oh. But I'll say this, and so we did. So I did that.
So wait.
King got buck?
Did you get totally down to it?
We did it. No, we didn't. It wasn't. No. Yeah, I don't know. I followed her orders. Here's the thing.
Wait, no.
King, you did not strip down.
I want to hear you say, I took my underwear off and I was buck naked.
I was buck naked in front of her, 1 inch from my face, as she stared into my eyes the entire time.
Wow.
Like, it was totally crazy.
What did it do to you?
Okay, this is what I'll say. No, this is the thing that I think Darren's kind of hit on, which is... Because I'm not somebody, anyone who has a director personality who likes to be in control at least of themselves, not necessarily other people, which is definitely me, it instantly opened me up to the rest of the experience. Because after that moment, I'm like, oh, well, fuck, anything that happens in here, I'm open to it now. And it really instantly got me into what this was. And so, I know as I was probably being, I don't even know if they do this ever in this thing, if Darren's just fucking with me or not. But either way, it worked.
That was the Elric special.
Then I'm wearing a jumpsuit. If it had been in front of all the other people, I would have found that actually kind of weird or humiliating. This was more like, because it was this one-on-one experience with this, the woman who's going to be the main character in this entire narrative. And that's the other thing. I know it's a game. Like, unlike what Andrew and Buzz, I know that I am in ultimately safe hands. Mm-hmm. And so I said to Josh when we got there, let's play the roles. Like, let's get into the game, whatever it is. And I won't go from room to room, but there is a sequence in this thing which was so fucking good, where they play with your smell, your hands, and it's so intense because you have no idea. You don't know where you are anymore. You get disorientated at times. But at no point is this about abuse. And there's one segment where they, maybe ask personal questions but at no point is this a thing where you're being yelled at or screamed at. It's all about like watching the process of, joining a cult or something. And there's other parts, honestly, more uncomfortable than me having to strip down. A girl, a very pretty girl, walked into a waiting room and just sat down next to me, put her chin on her hands and stared unblinkingly at me about, 2 inches from my face. And I turned to her and said, hey, and she just kept staring. And I went, okay, hey. And then Josh is looking over at me and somebody else. And that for like 5 minutes was way more uncomfortable than having to be nude, because it was just so like, oh, fuck, I don't know what to do with this. But there's moments where you changed your whole story. So my experience was 150 degrees different than what Josh did. He told me the stuff he did afterwards. I was like, oh my God, that's so different. I had a much more, I'd say there's some more sexuality in the story I line. I had some very beautiful people rub up on me and weird things whispered in my ear.
They totally catered that to you, Kane. They know you.
I like to call it the Bowsman limo ride that I was taking.
Bowsman champagne room.
When you show it all, this is what you get, baby. But it really, for Darren, I think this is like, I really hope it catches on, because it was so cool, artistic. The rooms were amazing. Actors are incredible. But I really think, I'm not just saying that to convince you, but I remember you used to, you've gone to other haunts. Yeah. The fact that you really like them, I would be absolutely shocked if you didn't think this was super cool.
An invite, I will join.
All right, you're a good man, and I'm not kidding when I say I would pay to go to myself. Like, not first time I get it, I would pay to do this again, because what I've heard is Andrew Cash and those guys just went back, and they told me it was a totally different and a deeper levels, like Westworld.
And you also, and you also told me that after you did it, you immediately got what Andrew and Buzz were talking about in terms of getting addicted to it.
Yeah,
like that you'd kind of want.
I went home and looked up Alone. I looked up.
Elric walked in.
Oh my God!
Like, let me put it this way, Ryan.
Like, hello, wife.
Let me put it this way,
right now,
Ryan. I went straight to San Diego to that weird Manor guy, and I'm like, "Here's your dog food, man. Just fuck me. Just fuck me. Whatever you want to do." That's the dark. No, but it really was special, and I implore. I don't think people are going to have many more chances this year, but I think there's, they can't take groups anymore. I think it's like groups of 2 go in, and it was really special. Darren should be super proud of himself. That is, it's something I could honestly don't know why I'd go back to movies after watching. For him, I'm like that seems like your sweet spot,
Yeah.
So do you think that this is something that Darren will expand into other cities? Because I mean, right now it's so LA centric.
I don't think it's up to him. Like I would say, this is now does something like this catch on like some of the others? I don't know how the others kind of grew their base initially, like and became. What's the main one here?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
The Basement.
The basement, yeah.
Basement.
And
Sleep No More
We
is what the
did
New York
one.
one.
Yeah, Sleep No More is in
We
the-
did a very loose version of one at the Stanley Film Festival a couple of years ago, which was very loose. But did you do that one?
The Stanley? That's the immersive gaming experience. Where
Yeah.
You're like, yeah. No, I described a little bit of it.
There's a little of the gaming. Yeah. There's a tiny bit of the escape room thing, but not really. It's still kind of a show. It's like a theatrical show. So anyway, I can't recommend it enough. I'm kind of glad I did that episode of our show, and kind of every year I think I'm going to do one of these things now.
So if you want Elric focus, just strip him down.
That's right.
That's
all you
trick.
need.
No, really quick, before our guest comes on, I just want to say that we are wearing our Cavity Colors Shockwaves T-shirts.
Yeah.
Very soft. Very nice, well designed. But what elates me is seeing fans who have been taking photos of the shirts in various locations or at conventions or on the set of The Omen 2.
Which is awesome.
In front of the elevator from The Omen 2, which blew me away.
And we will send you cool things if you take them with no pants, just your shirt. That's like a special.
We're going to send Elric to stare at you judgmentally. But very cool stuff, and keep spreading the word via social media. And also, by the way, guys, I know I'm kind of just becoming a little bit more regular around here. I think we need more reviews.
On iTunes, definitely. We're a little
we
low.
need some more.
Well, I think it's because a lot of our people probably reviewed
us
the old
as
show.
Killer POV.
All righty. Well, that's the latest, and we're going to bring our guest on.
It's no secret, we at Shockwaves are huge fans of horror. On film, on TV, and especially in person. Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios Hollywood brings together the sickest minds in horror to immerse guests in a living, breathing, three-dimensional world of terror. Now through November 5th, 2016, Halloween Horror Nights features a new slate of unrivaled film and television production quality mazes, frightful scare zones, and a fully reimagined terror tram experience, all uniquely themed to today's most definitive horror properties, like The Exorcist, American Horror Story, Halloween, Hell Comes to Haddonfield, Freddy vs. Jason, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Krampus, The Walking Dead, and The Purge election year. These mazes are scary as hell, and we will be telling you about each of them in graphic detail over the next few weeks. As Southern California's most extreme Halloween event, Halloween Horror Nights is designed to taunt, terrorize, and torment guests as they navigate the darkness from one frightening maze to another. Tickets are available for purchase at www.halloweenhorrornights.com/Hollywood, including a front-of-line ticket option that enables guests to enjoy priority access to each of the Halloween Horror Nights mazes and the Terror Tram, a theme park ride. Advanced purchase is recommended as events nights will sell out. Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios Hollywood. Nobody does Halloween better. Visit HalloweenHorrorNights.com/Hollywood now for more info and to get your tickets.
Okay, and welcome back to the show. This is really exciting because, as I was just saying right before we went on air during the break, I saw this gentleman's film last year and immediately walked out and thought, this was a movie made for Elric Kane. Like, it hits all of his checkpoints in every possible way, and I was right.
And sometimes that can go wrong when somebody tells you that, and then you see a movie like, I don't know, throw out things like Neon Demon and Green Inferno, which people told me I'd like, and then I sat down and went,
you would
rubbish.
Like Green Inferno?
I don't know.
That's like an
probably right.
That was probably
before his
me.
job started.
But I also recall coming into the studio, I think I talked about
he did too,
our guest film, who we should introduce.
We're building
up.
Oh, is that what we're doing?
Suspenseful.
This is his first podcast, Ryan.
We can't just throw him in.
Exactly.
Anyways, I saw this film at TIFF. I fell in love with it immediately.
Yeah.
And then I believe I came on the show and I told you how much I loved it.
I think Ryan also said
this is
Elric's
jam.
We've got far enough. Our guest is blushing.
Yes.
Well, welcome to the show, Oz Perkins.
Thanks, everybody.
And that film
good to have you. Good to have
was
you.
called February, and now it's called Blackcoat's Daughter.
This is true.
So for people listening wanting to look it up, what the hell we're talking about, that is the facts.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody's listening to this in England,
Yeah, they do.
listen to this in
Yeah.
We do.
are
Absolutely.
they permitted?
1,300 a month, apparently.
1,300 a month from
Listeners
England.
a month.
Don't give our numbers away.
It's on Netflix now
No way.
in
England.
England,
Holy
and it's still called February.
Oh, wow.
So,
Oh, what a weird deal.
So
weird
the
deal.
UK folks understand that it can just be called February, but we had to get like a more riveting title here.
we had to go deep. We had to dig deeper.
Okay. Got it.
But before you see February, a.k.a. The Blackcoat's Daughter, next week or in 2 weeks?
On the 28th. Yeah,
October
it's true.
28th, you will be able to see his next film, I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House.
Which will be sort of like my first film, even though it's my second film. It's one of those.
Yeah.
But straight to Netflix. Like Hush did.
Like a Netflix original, we'd like to say straight to Netflix sounds sort of...
Yeah.
Way to go with a negative
I was trying to go
gangster.
He did straight out of Netflix.
He did this
sad.
when Hush came out as well. He was like, that Blumhouse Hush movie.
It worked.
Went straight to Netflix.
It worked for Hush.
That's kind of an interesting thing that's been happening lately.
It really is.
You know, it was previously like, oh, you dump films direct, but that's not happening anymore because Netflix is paying top dollar and really trying to bring in some good stuff. So they're getting like really classy horror, like straight out the gate.
Well, I find what happens, just to sort of jump into that, what I find happens now legitimately is that having made the movie with Netflix, I now go into other places and I say, it's almost like having a good parent, like a really permissive dad. And you say, well, Dad lets me stay up. Dad lets me have as much money as I want for my movie. Dad didn't come to the set.
Ryan's not going to like that.
And Netflix, I mean, that's sort of like you see other places, they go a bit pale because it's like Netflix is kind of a dream.
And I do have to say that some of the films on Netflix are getting more eyeballs than I'm seeing other places. So like before, if something like The Last Shift came out or Taking of Deborah Logan, I would feel like I'm constantly trying to promote these films to horror fans. Like, oh, you should see this. But they already know about them. Like these are ones that are getting tons of eyeballs because they are there.
Because they're
in
accessible
streaming.
to the masses. Yeah.
I mean, I think those two you just mentioned are ones that got recommended to us. So, I mean, it's funny how the horror audience has grown so drastically on Netflix because Netflix is just so huge at this point that they find this stuff and start telling us about it.
Right.
We're going to jump around
spiraling
quite a bit.
back.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
let's
spiraling
back up.
back.
We will get to the new movie.
We're going back to young Oz Perkins.
Yeah, we want to go back to the beginning because obviously for all of us, we all discovered horror a certain way and the way that we fell in love with the genre, whether it be Universal monster movies or just the video generation and all that. So, what was it for you? I mean, obviously, the film business has been a big part of your life since you were born, but did you find an attraction to horror when you were a young guy watching these movies, or how did you kind of fall into this?
I think it's sort of as simple and therefore, I guess, profound to say that because my old man was who he was, it was the kind of thing where that's how I could connect to him. And he wasn't the easiest person to connect to, as I think it's common with dads, let's face it. And so I think that horror movies from an early age seemed like some kind of like a portal, some kind of a lens through which you could kind of interpret this person who lived with you. Like who's your father who lives with you, and who you, as a child, I didn't know so good. And I think that the fact that horror movies were sort of, he was a king. He was a king in that realm, and sort of visit that world. I mean, when my brother and I were little, and we would have our birthday parties, which were inevitably, sleepovers for 20 kids, kinds of things. And God bless my sainted mother. But it was 20 kids, and whether they were ready for it or not, it was the Toxic Avenger. And let me tell you, lots of these kids were not fucking even close to ready. That's what it was. Like, I remember lots of kids, like, they get up, right, and go walk in another, like, I can't do this.
Within the house of horror royalty.
It's not my time.
It's
you're at
Toxic
Tony
Avenger.
Perkins' house, and it's kids, you're 9, and it's Toxic Avenger time.
Lloyd's coming on the show in a couple of weeks, and we have to tell him about this, guys.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
How much for a kid on a bike? That was like our thing when we were 10. And like I say, we thought it was fine. But I think a lot of other kids didn't think it was so cool.
Was there? I'm curious. Was there strong censorship within your household in terms of what you could see and could not see? I mean, Toxic Avenger is like a pretty, broad, crazy.
I mean, there were a few titles, honestly, of movies that stuck in my head of things like the adults are watching a movie tonight. You can't watch Blue Velvet.
Oh,
wow.
I could see that.
And that was back in the days when things were on TV. You weren't renting videotapes. And this is 1980, right? Where I guess Blue Velvet's 85.
85 or something.
So let's say it's 87, right?
Yeah.
And like you're kind of getting videotapes, but like Blue Velvet's on TV, kids, go in the other room.
Yeah.
But I think beyond Blue Velvet, I think I was sort of, I mean, I never saw Psycho until I was like 13 or 14.
Right.
But that was not because I was avoiding it. I just wasn't like, That's just that's old. That's dad.
Yeah, were you just not interested because it was your father?
I feel like
rebelling against it.
It's just like not. It's like not interested. It wasn't. It didn't seem applicable. Whereas other horror movies, like I say, somehow seemed like that was a way. Strangely, it seemed strange. It would seem that seeing his movies would be the way to be closer to him. But I think that actually seeing more oblique ones was almost safer in a way. Because my dad also had a relationship with his father's films. Because my dad's father died when my father was 5.
Oh, wow.
And he was Osgood Perkins. And Osgood Perkins was the villain in Howard Hawks' Scarface. Yeah. And he died when my father was 5. And so my father had this thing where every once in a while they would show Scarface on TV. And my dad would stand and watch like 5-10 minutes of Scarface and call me into the room, Oz, come here. And I'd come and I'd stand next to him, sort of like at the back of the living room, like distance from the television. And watch 5 minutes of Scarface, but never the whole thing. And it was like, but you could see that my old man had like, there was a reverence, but there was also like an estrangement, an alienation,
like a barrier.
Yeah.
When you finally did see it, are you able at all to? And also because you've done a lot of acting now yourself, but at the time when you finally saw Psycho, were you able to see it as that character, or was it really the whole time Dad? At any point, did you get into the story?
My only real memory of ever watching Psycho is just being legitimately impressed. Thinking like this really is special. Like his what he does in the movie really is modern. It really is one of those things where it's one of those movies where one person is doing something and everybody else is sort of in another movie.
Yeah.
Sort of like On the Waterfront. You watch that, it's like, oh yeah, he's Brando's in his own thing.
He's playing with the glove.
He's in his own thing. No, it doesn't need anybody else.
Yeah.
And there was that sort of feeling when watching Psycho 2. I was like, yeah, this actually really is like a magic trick. It's really impressive. Yeah.
Did he actually like watching horror films, though? You're saying because horror was a connection, but did you guys sit down and watch those kind of films at all together?
No, I don't. Not really. I mean, and he didn't seek them out, and sort of towards the end of his career, he was doing some pretty lousy ones. So I think that by the time it got to the point where I was 13, 14, and sort of articulate enough to be like someone you could actually talk to.
Yeah.
He was already sort of doing movies that I didn't think he was so thrilled about, and was being shown movies that were kind of like bad taste horror movies, and didn't sort of love that. So no, it wasn't like a horror household.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And in terms of that, I want to just touch on the sequels really quick. Did you ultimately wind up catching up to those as well? And what were your initial thoughts? And were you old enough to visit the sets of those?
Well, I'm in the second one.
Yeah. That's right.
I'm young.
That's right. Thanks for fact checking.
I'm young. I got my SAG card.
That's right.
Wow.
As young Norman Bates, age, I guess it was 82, so I guess I'm 8 when that happened.
Oh my God. Wow.
And so that was my first real kind of like dive in with both feet.
Wow.
You're on the stage.
Okay, well, day one, like take me on the day. Like I'm curious. What you can remember.
I was scared. It was scary. I mean, it was scary that the set was sort of, it had that really kind of musty, overly lacquered, sort of like the Bates house had the kind of like all the wood was like really polished, and it was like the carpets were sort of thick and musty, and it was scary. Like it was all phony, but to me it felt. I mean, I was in it. I was 8. And it was like I had to look at the door, right, like on the other side of the door. It was impressive. I was impressed by it. And then when he did Psycho 3, which was in Psycho. Jeez, my memory will fail me.
3's the one he directed.
3's the one he directed.
4 was in Orlando,
and it was in Orlando. And we went to Orlando, and we sort of hung out on the sets and everything in Orlando. 3 sort of I have no real memory of, but 2 was
But 3's like the thing that always impresses. It's really well directed.
Yeah, I love 3.
I always think it's actually the most Hitchcockian non-directed Hitchcock film I've ever seen. It just feels like it's almost aping Hitchcock, but in a way that's fun.
But it really does set up these kind of suspense set pieces. Like they're not like action-y. It's the same kind of Hitchcock style where it's all about, well, is somebody going to touch that and discover this thing? And it's all built out of those kind of set pieces. Yeah,
and before we started the show, I mentioned another film that no one ever talks about unless it's playing a repertoire, but Last of Sheila, that I guess Stephen Sondheim wrote.
My dad wrote it with Stephen Sondheim. They wrote it together.
And the cast is just one of the most fun group of people you'll ever see. And it's a thriller mystery, and it's just so good if you haven't seen it.
It's basically 10 Little Indians on a boat with Hollywood people.
Yeah, I think Richard Benjamin said something like, like, oh, it was a good excuse for us all to hang out in Italy for 10 months or something. And I was like, sounds good.
The old movie business.
Yeah, right.
Did you spend a lot of time on sets with your dad? Because I'm just curious at what point you decided that this would probably be something in your life, either writing, acting, and being involved in the entertainment business. Was there ever a diversion or a thought like, man, this is cool and all, but I'd rather do this? Or was it always kind of set in you that you were going to be in this business?
I think that it was sort of unspoken. It wasn't the kind of thing, like I didn't have the relationship with my dad where I'd sit down like, arm in arm, be like, son, I'm going to show you how to do this. Like, we're going to go do the equivalent, like the metaphoric equivalent of playing catch. Like, I'm going to show you how this gets done. That never sort of happened between us. So the oblique, like I said, sort of like the drive to do it was, I think, sort of baked into me silently. And then I came to love movies through like Tim Burton.
Interesting, yeah.
Like Beetlejuice, I watched every day twice after school for like 2 weeks, like burning the VHS.
And
tape.
What was that alchemy within the film that was just like attracting you?
Honestly, it's silly to say almost, but it's even just the titles when they're going over the town and they get to the house and the spider comes over the top of the house and the hand reaches and pulls the spider. And for me, it was like, oh yeah, right. Like someone's designing all of this. Yeah. Like this isn't just happening by accident. And it was the first time, and it's literally that sort of Deus Ex Machina thing where it's like the hand literally comes down onto the set and takes the spider. You're like, oh right, like they thought about this. Like somebody planned this whole thing. It didn't just accidentally happen. And then Clockwork Orange, sort of like right hard on the heels of that again. It's like, all right, like this is like somebody's doing this. Those are the movies.
Was it initially acting and performance in terms of your career? Because when I first became aware of you, it was through a movie with a mutual friend of ours, Mark Kelly, and it was a film called Removal and Dead and Breakfast. And so when I heard you had made a film, I had no idea that was, part of your interest. So it was kind of cool when it was as good as it was. It's always a nice surprise.
Lucky me. Yeah.
But was acting the initial draw, or was it always towards making films?
It was, in high school, I was in the drama department, and sort of, I think a combination of being like good enough to be the star of, to be the creature in Frankenstein at Harvard Westlake, like being good enough to be able to do that. I don't think it hurt that my old man was who it was. I think there was a fair amount of like, oh yeah, that'd be cool if we had Tony Perkins' kid in this.
Yeah.
So I think there's like a certain amount of nepotism that sort of like just, sort of rolls down the hill a little bit. But I got into it that way. But I started making movies with my friends, and I was 13, 14, 15, just ridiculous nonsense bullshit, but fun and instructive enough. And I went to film school. I went to NYU for a year, and I just sort of roamed a lot in my late teens and 20s. I just didn't do anything, and so I just kind of fell out of this and fell out of that and fell out of this. And then when I came back to LA when I was about 25, and I just sort of thought, well, what can I do? And like, I'm not sort of proud of my 25-year-old self. I was a bit of a sort of an entitled, kind of like a little bit like a bum, just like an entitled rich kid bum who was like, what can I do? I could probably get a manager. I could probably get an agent. I could probably act, I guess. Someone's going to go on and give me something for free. And I got a manager and I got an agent and I started auditioning for things and I kind of got some jobs and it was fine for a while, but it was just so not my thing. I never felt like I was in control of it.
So walk us through the first day on Legally Blonde, first day. Like Reese is there, you're there, director, high key lighting, what's going on?
It's horror podcast.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll scrap that.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a whole clique of people who,
that would be exciting to them,
Legally Blonde cuts a wide swath.
Yeah,
in this
you're right.
world.
You're right.
They made a second one.
It was huge. That was a huge film.
It was huge, and it. I wouldn't say that it plagues me to this day because it's an enjoyable thing that people love.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get it. I get it pretty much every day.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank God, aren't you? Isn't that? How do I know you? It's all that. Yeah.
That's hilarious. I love that. That's the film.
Yeah. I know.
The one.
Was there any early at that point that, in terms of acting wise, that you were proud of? Kind of like, I really actually got challenged on that one, and that was a really cool gig.
No.
All right.
I felt like I barely made it through all of them, honestly, without anybody being like, he's a fucking phony. Yeah. Fire him. I sort of was able to wrap all the movies I was in without being fired, and I thought that was fun.
Wow. So jumping ahead to February, what was the impetus behind all of it? I mean, when you were telling me what the title change and where the title change had come from, I was like, okay, there's multiple layers, and it break down to the music selection that you used for the film, so kind of like, let's just go into the genesis of the film itself.
Yeah.
I want to know where it came from.
Well, and also what pushed you to make that first one, because especially if it was from watching films you were acting in, being dissatisfied with the work, wanting more control, or I'm curious how that happened.
I had co-written a couple of things. I had sort of found myself co-writing a few scripts with people, and realizing, I can. This is when I was destroying Beetlejuice, my Beetlejuice VHS by overwatching it, and by watching Clockwork Orange and sort of that, going to film school for a year, all of that, and having co-written a few things, I was reminded, this is my thing. This is right. It's like you sort of re-find yourself. Like I was lucky to be able to have like almost like a second chance. It sounds sort of corny, but like I was in my late 30s, right? And I sort of was writing with people and felt relatively capable. And so it just became time for me to write my first thing. And it was as simple as, what do I want to see? What do I like? What are the things that I like? And right around that same time, I saw two pictures that really impacted me, and they were The Strangers and Let the Right One In. And those two movies, in the course of a week or two, I saw them together. And what struck me about both of them was how sad they were. I mean, The Strangers is a sad, sad movie.
Absolutely.
It is.
And Brian's a close friend of mine, and he's a really sweet soul. Brian Bertino is. It's a really brutal movie, but it's also a really sad movie. Yeah. It's just kind of about two people trying to kind of feel their feelings, and then it's like you're fucking dead.
Yeah.
Wow. Now I completely understand his recent film, because it's also about two people trying to feel feelings.
Exactly.
And then something happens.
And then it's just like, it's like, this sort of like non-negotiable thing of like, no, it's over.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't get a chance. Like, life is not fair.
And you don't get an answer why.
You don't get an answer.
Disturbing part.
Which is so true about just everything.
Any act of senseless violence or tragedies.
Yeah, it's like, because you're home, it's like, it's like, and not only there's no answer, but it's like the most vulnerable possible situation you can be in. And so this quality, like this disrupted life, that The Strangers is a really picture about a disrupted life, disrupted love, and disrupted, like, it's over.
And you don't know where they're coming from. Like, right. That's the great thing. It's the first time you see these two, they're literally in a car.
Yeah.
He's got red knuckles. You're like, why is his knuckle? What? Is he punching something?
Yeah.
Is there like, did they just get out of a fight? There's not enough there, but you relate to it somehow. You're like, oh, I've been in that uncomfortable car ride on the way home.
Yeah. And it's a sad drama that then, sort of descends into that like I'm saying, it's that non-negotiable quality of dying.
Yeah.
And it's in it. The Manson sort of family had the same kind of vibe where it's like, no, this is just what's happening to you now, and it's sort of what I think we all know intrinsically about death and about how it's going to be. Like, no, this is it. Yeah. Like, that's it.
Well, and the Mansons are going to the wrong address, right? So it's not like you weren't even part of the plan.
Exactly.
They just knocked on the wrong door.
Exactly, and The Strangers is pretty much that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
We just knocked.
And in some way, Let the Right One is kind of playing on the same themes.
Let the Right One In, and again, a sad movie about just someone who's like loses everybody she loves. I mean, that's what that movie is. That movie is just you're coming in on one epoch of hers, one love that she has that's just not going to last. Yeah. All these guys come through her life, they all just get old and useless, and then they die, and she stays in her torment. Yeah. And, it's a beautiful little love story that's not going to work out.
Right.
Yeah.
It's sad and all. And so I saw those two movies together, and just the artfulness of both of them. They're both really, The Strangers is a really delicate movie in a lot of ways until it's not. And Let the Right One In obviously is just poised and exquisite. And so between those two movies, I felt this all of a sudden it was like horror movies could be. It was okay for for horror movies to be sad and about people and about grief and about humanity in a way that I didn't sort of know before, but it really resonated with me. And it really resonated with my life because I'd suffered significant losses, both the loss of my mother and my father, 9 years apart, minus 1 day. And so there's a lot of heavy karma shit on me. And so seeing these movies and feeling all of a sudden like, oh yeah, right, like that's the medium. The medium is going to be a sad horror picture. And so then getting to the writing of it, as absolutely ridiculous as it sounds, I started with what's a contained location? Mm-hmm. Just like as inane as that sounds now, what's a contained location?
Well, I think that's how a lot of people have to start.
You got to start, so you got to find the skin flap, right? You got to start somewhere. And how do I open this package?
Yeah, contained locations, not only does it give you a starting point for story, but it also helps contain the budget, which is important when you're doing indie filmmaking today.
Completely the considerations going into it. And so I sort of said, well, okay, girls' school. Girls' schools, and they can't leave because why? It's snowy. Okay, so snowy girls' school. Why aren't there a bunch of cool kids there? Vacation. Yep. Okay.
Keeping the cast numbers down.
Diabolique. It's kind of Diabolique, right? It's like another thing that had really obviously had made an impression on me. Diabolique making an impression on me because of the fact that it's got one scare in it.
Yeah.
It's got one thing in it.
But one scare, but Hitchcock was so furious at that because he thought he had outdone him. Yeah,
exactly.
He copied him and outdone him. He was furious about
And Hitchcock
that.
wanted to make that book and had missed the option on it by an hour or something like that.
Wow.
But the sort of the structure of Diabolique had that thing where it's like, no, you can actually spend the whole movie just getting to one thing, and that's more than enough. It's sort of the same with Don't Look Now. It's the same kind of thing. Where it's like, there's nothing in that movie.
Nothing.
But one of the scariest things that,
And it's also like the films you were just talking about, when you're talking about a film about sadness and loss.
Exactly.
But the horror of still rushing to the thing that is going to get you.
Exactly.
Which I think is a very interesting pull in horror,
So all of those movies were sort of swimming around in my head.
Yeah.
And I had this idea to do this contained thing. And so then you just start writing it. I mean, and I'm not a page one, scene one kind of guy. I have a whole other design, I have to design the whole thing. I mean, February was an 85-page outline before it was anything. Wow. Where everything's written, everything's down, and then I just sort of for me, I think screenwriting, we can talk more about that, but I think screenwriting for me is like taking stuff out.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you look at a screenplay page, there's no word. There's almost like there's more space in a sense than there is words. So really, you're just sort of moving stuff out in a way to clarify what you're doing.
Right. Was that your process when you were working with co-writers as well, like kind of putting everything out and figuring out how to whittle it down, or was this something that kind of came about when you started kind of writing solo?
Yeah, I mean, I had written that way with other people, and I had gone to the writers' boot camp. I don't know if people talk about that in this room, as a secret weapon. The writers' boot camp is a sort of a writing class school thing in Santa Monica that this guy Jeff Gordon sort of concocted. And out of all the things that I've read, and out of all the methodologies and the systems and things, it's sort of deeply inspired. And it sort of operates on ultimately it becomes kind of like a crossword puzzle where it's like, well, if I get 15 across, then I know 7 down. And if I know 7 down, then I know 8 across. Because it's like if I know where the character is at in their life, then I kind of know what the first what the inciting incident is going to be. And if I know what the inciting incident is going to be, then I kind of know what the theme is. And so you kind of are able to piece it out that way. And once you do all of that, then it becomes the outline process, and then it becomes taking stuff out.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Well, that's the cheat sheet, everybody. All of you living at home.
I've written it all down.
I had a professor in college that I remember on the very last day of class, he said, and the best advice I will ever give you in any arts industry that you go into is learn to kill your darlings. And I have to say, that is the one thing that I've seen filmmakers struggle with is this scene is everything to me. I cannot take out this scene. It is the essence of the movie. And being able to do that, it's admirable.
It's Tootsie, right? He's like, how's it going with the necktie? He's like, I rewrote the necktie scene without the necktie. It's Bill Murray. He's like, I rewrote the necktie scene without the necktie. And you're like, totally, man. That's everything.
That's amazing. I don't want to dwell too much on February just because it hasn't come out yet, and I know our listeners will be like, hey, what the heck? Yeah, here.
But our UK listeners, go for it.
Yeah.
Watch it now.
But for for them, what is it? Stepping away from the film, what is the film to you? What is it? What does it represent? I mean, obviously, you're very proud of it. You're eager for people to check it out. What should people be looking forward to, so to speak?
No pressure.
Great question.
And no hype, because I called it the best film of last year. So no hype behind it.
I know. It's like we've been sitting here
we've
going,
talked
it's
it
great.
up.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
I think it's okay. I guess what I've got, sort of feedback, I can only go from feedback because I can't see it myself for what it is at all. I mean, like, for me, like, I only became okay with it when I realized, oh yeah, I didn't make this movie for me to watch it. Like, that's not why I make movies. I don't make movies so I can go home and be like, what am I going to watch tonight? I'm going to watch my own movies. Yeah. Like, it's none of my business really how it's, like what
you did the journey.
Making the
movie was the journey.
And so much of making movies is just about, like, especially in the director position, it's just about doing what you think is good. It's just about taste. Yeah. I think that's good and that's not. I like that, but not that. It's so much of it is that. And when you write your own material, you're coming at it, you're imbued with all of it, and it's like it's just in all of your cells, and so you know what to do. But so much of it is just that, but not that. Right. That's ugly. That's pretty. That sounds right. That sounds wrong. And I don't mean to diminish it, but that's at a certain point you kind of have to. Yeah. Otherwise, you go fucking crazy and complicated. But for me, the feedback I've gotten on both movies is how nice that it's a horror picture that's not boisterous and nasty and cheap and overly gory and sort of senseless. How I think the fact that the people actually leave February feeling, oh, I really felt for her at the end. Poor thing. Yeah. And you're like, poor thing. Yeah, totally poor thing. I mean, she's horrific, but poor thing.
Well, and surprising. I mean, there's something lacking, and probably why I think I respond to certain films more than others is if I get to do some of the work. And there's enough ambiguity in the first, I can't remember if it's 30 or 40 minutes into the film. It was farther than I normally am behind the 8 ball, where my brain went, oh, same person. But I wasn't thinking that. For a long time, I was watching two narratives going, oh, cool, two narratives. Yeah. And then when I had that feeling, and then it was just like exciting to me to have to do a little bit of the work. Yeah. And all my favorite films have that. Even Don't Look Now. It plays a lot of ambiguities, rather than just, exposition at the start of a movie to set everything up. And even now, if somebody asked me to spoil February for them, I probably couldn't give you all the things, because even now I don't know where the horror necessarily comes from. And I love that feeling because I've been thinking about it for years. I want to see it again. Great. I don't want to see all horror films again, right. And I think that's, something obviously you could try to plan, but probably a lot of it's just organically. And like you said, it's from your taste. You're channeling your taste. Yeah.
It's so, I mean, like I say, it's sort of, it's either you have it or you don't. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to make that sound a shitty way, but it's like either you can shoot the basketball or you can't.
Right.
And what about the American title, the
BLACKCOAT'S Daughter? Yeah, I mean, we were asked to change the title. A24 wanted us to change the title when they bought it, which is fine. I mean, it'll always be February to me, right? And I hope nobody gets...
Was that part of the narrative? I just can't remember.
BLACKCOAT'S Daughter?
No, February. Was it part of the narrative?
No, for me, it was... for me, February, it was more about that the month was... The time was a location. Okay. That, like, things were happening at a time because they had happened... One thing had happened, and then 7 years later it had happened again, that kind of a thing.
Okay, that's what, yeah.
We were asked to change the title, and The BLACKCOAT'S Daughter comes out of a rhyme that my brother and I found. My brother wrote all the music, Elvis Perkins. My brother wrote all the music, and we did this sort of incantation at the beginning of the movie and at the end of the movie. And it's Deedle, Deedle, BLACKCOAT'S Daughter, what was in the holy water? Gone to bed with an unclean head, the angels, they forgot her. And so this black coat quality was like, was it a priest? Is that what a black coat is? Is it the devil? Is it a kind of both? And in the movie, there is a sort of the ambiguity of male authority, father figures, where there's father and there's devil and there's priest and there's all these sort of things are kind of mushed together. And so BLACKCOAT'S Daughter, I don't know, I like the word daughter.
Yeah. At times the horror is the closest film I can think of that's come out post is actually The Witch. BLACKCOAT'S Daughter, for me, your film for me works even better on a level, but there's the couple horror moments of The Witch where you actually see something remind me kind of those moments of your film where it's still filled with ambiguity, but also a lot of dread. Cool. You're just feeling worried.
Glad you like it, pal.
Yeah.
You were
I'm in.
You were talking earlier about, you make a film you kind of go into what you want to see. You know, you make something that you want to see that isn't being satisfied in the space today. So what were some of the films beyond The Strangers and Let the Right One In that were kind of satisfying that Jones that you had in horror?
I'm trying to think of newer movies. I'm trying to think of contemporary movies that I see that I feel that way about. I like
What are we doing wrong? What's wrong in the space that you would like to see more of from artists and filmmakers and writers?
Oh, what a great question! Jeez, I wish I was. I find that like I'm thinking so much about my own shit and like my own stuff and my own problems and my own relationships that I don't like think about other people's stuff. Like I don't critique things. Like either I like them or I don't. And I like strange things. Like I don't, it's the things that resonate for me. Like I have no reason. I can't explain why it is. Like I think Johnny Knoxville is a genius. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how to. I don't know what to say. Like
has that ever been said before, guys?
Like you can't defend it, but you believe it.
Like I believe like things like that. Like I don't know what to say. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what anybody's doing wrong. I can only tell you what they're doing right. Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah. All right. Fair.
But are you someone who actively still like will go back to I want to watch old Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or are you much more just it depends what you're working on at the time that you're kind of referencing? Or
I'll return more likely to Eraserhead. Mm-hmm. I'll return more likely to The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Like I don't know why, but just like strange things like that, they appeal to me. Repulsion, I'll watch over and over again. Rosemary's Baby, I'll watch over and over. The first Carrie, I'll watch anytime they want to show that. Mm-hmm. There's Carrie's another example of this. There's a sad movie. Yeah, there's a sad movie with one thing in it, with one real thing in it. They don't do anything. Carrie, my God, all they do is sit in cars and talk. For a long time.
Hell,
until
the prom, though.
Yeah.
Right, then the
crazy prom.
And that's okay.
And so after February, February gets retitled Blackcoat's Daughter. Yeah. It's out in the UK for some reason.
Just because the holdup is a North America thing right now.
But it's still A24 release.
A24 will release it in 2017 at some point.
Who are releasing some kick-ass movies.
They're the cool kids, and I feel cool to have been deemed cool by them.
Was I Am the Pretty Thing written before or after?
I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, which we did for Netflix, a Netflix original, not so much straight to Netflix.
Let me rephrase the question. When you wrote the Netflix original.
Yeah, when I wrote that, I wrote, most of it was written before we shot February, to be honest. And then as I was finishing February, I figured I better have something ready, and luckily I did. And so most of it was sort of done before we made February, and then I made it sort of more complete.
And how would you describe the film?
I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. It's a ghost's story. I say ghost's story as opposed to ghost story because it's sort of, I still can't really believe that we were able to make the picture at all because it's sort of, you've read it. It's basically one character in a house by herself. It's mostly narration. There's like one scene of dialogue. The rest is just kind of walking around, visuals and atmosphere. And I like old-fashioned stuff. I like the ghosts in Disneyland. That's what I like. I like, did you see that thing walk past the door? Like, I like that. To me, like, that's my taste. Yeah. And so I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House is kind of, it's that, I have an old house in Cape Cod, Massachusetts that my dad bought in the 60s, and people say, when you have movie star money now, kid, buy land, right? Like they used to say to people. And so we have a bunch of land in Cape Cod, and we have this old house that was built in the 1790s, and it's never really been changed, any of it. And so the quality of having a house and just the feeling of a house that contains what it contains.
History, life.
Yeah, nothing goes anywhere. Yeah. Sort of that essential precept of just because something's gone, where does it go? It couldn't possibly leave.
Now, did you shoot it at this house?
We built it.
You built this house?
We built it, which was a thrill, honestly.
Because you got to design it for camera movements, which is
We got to design it for for everything, and nobody thinks we built it, which is awesome. Everyone thinks, where's the house? And no, we built it in Ottawa, in a warehouse in Ottawa.
Is that where you shot February?
We shot both movies in Ottawa.
Yeah, I remember seeing it was Canada.
And both of them in February's in Ottawa. And February we shot in February in Ottawa, -40, but like legitimately -40 at night, standing around making a movie. So it's not -40 walking to your car.
So you were literally shooting I Am Pretty Thing a year.
1 year we started.
1 year after
photography started 1 year -1 day.
Wow.
From when we started. Yeah, it was a big year.
Wow. And even though they were back to back, I mean, was there much difference in terms of what you learned off the first one going into the second one? Did you have a little bit more confidence now that you'd gotten your first feature out of the way?
Yes and no, because the first one was just do or die. There was no option of failure. There was no option of this not working out. I mean, it was all so stressful. I mean, first movies are stressful anyway, but first movies that cost, $2 million and the financing is like kind of there, and your schedule is kind of going to work, and you've never done I never directed a commercial or a video or a short, nothing. This is my day one was day one.
Wow.
And so that was sort of unbelievably stressful, but it was do or die. It was like, what am I going to do? Stop? What am I going to do? Like, give up? I'm going to just show up every day and do this. The Pretty Thing was like making an old movie like in the studio system where all of a sudden you have 30 days to shoot. I mean, God, like The Exorcist, right? They had 90 shooting days or something like that. We had 30 days, which is a lot.
Yeah.
These days.
Now it's a lot. And we had enough money, and we were able to build everything. So every day was 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The whole movie takes place inside the house. So we had that. We never had to leave. And it was sort of, you're sort of sitting in your chair all day, and it's like you're working on it was pretty relaxing. So the hardest thing I think about directing that is still hard for me, having only made 2 movies, is just being present. Just being actually invested in present, what's happening in front of you now, and not thinking, I should have done that differently yesterday, or what about tomorrow's thing, and is this going to be a joke when it's done, or any of that. Being able to look at the monitor and saying, this is it here now, and not only that, but what's happening on the monitor is happening 10 feet over there, and I can change it if I need to. That's, for me, the hardest part, is being present enough to sort of be able to interpret as it's coming. Because that's what you're doing as the director all the time, right? You're interpreting what's happening, interpreting what they're giving you. Is that actor saying it in the right way? Jesus Christ, is the camera in the right place? Am I interpreting my own stuff properly? And being present and turning that over constantly is hard.
Do you think it helped being an actor for that? Also, knowing what you wanted from the directors that you had worked with or didn't get, is it similar kind of presence needed, like listening?
The very few things that my dad ever did sort of say to me about the craft, he said to me that when he was making Murder on the Orient Express with Sidney Lumet, that there was a day when they were shooting something and someone knocks a picture frame over or something and the picture falls to the ground. And they did the scene, and my dad went to Sidney Lumet and he said, don't you want to pick that up, the frame falling on the ground? And Sidney Lumet looked at him and said, look, I don't tell you how to act, do I? And for whatever reason, that stuck with me, maybe because it was one of like the 5 things my dad told me about making movies, but it really stuck with me. And I sort of like believe that to this day. It's like, I can't tell Ruth Wilson how to act. That's an Olivier winner, gang. Right? I don't, this is what you need to do. Honestly, I don't think it's my business. I think my business is, here's the material, here's what it means to me. I wonder about this. I wonder if she thinks this. I wonder if she sees this. I wonder if it's like that. But not sort of do it this way. I don't understand. I would feel strange saying that.
Not dictating. I really am curious with both films about casting. What casting means to you? How much control you had on each film, and whether you got because the newest film you have. The first thing I noticed was Paul Prentice, who I hadn't seen in a film for a very long time, and she's from Stepford Wives and a lot of great. What's the not MASH but Catch-22? A lot of great stuff. But so what's your process on both films? Also, the little girl from Mad Men, Kieran
Shipka,
who on Mad Men I was like, yeah, she's good. She'll be a good actress one day, and I see her in February and just knocked me on my ass how great she was.
She knocked me on my ass from day one. Cool. I mean, with February, it was the kind of thing where, you're raising money, and so you're casting people who are going to bring you money. And so the script goes to people who have value. And I couldn't have gotten more sort of just like, it's just lucky, right? Again, like so much of this is just luck. Emma Roberts reads it, and on a Tuesday and on a Wednesday, she calls me. She's like, I'm so upset. I have to do this movie. I can't, I had to go for a walk. I couldn't sleep in my house. I can't deal with it. I have to make the movie. So then your movie's greenlit. It's just greenlit straight away. Emma Roberts says yes, and your movie's a go. Yeah. And she says to me, who should play me when I'm younger is Kiernan Shipka. And I said, I don't know who that is because I don't watch Mad Men. Yeah. And got the script to Kiernan, who read it on a Tuesday, and on a Wednesday said, you have to do this. And, that's the kind of thing where, you're given people who couldn't have been better and couldn't have been bigger joys to work with and couldn't have understood the material any better. And so that, that was like that. I got to, on February, make very few sort of casting choices. I chose to cast Lucy Boynton as Rose, and, that was a thrill for me to be able to read 100+ people, and then get as many tapes and just sort of see this wide range of people interpreting what I'd written. I couldn't, in the room auditioning, I laughed the whole time. Not because at anybody, but just because they were saying my shit. Yeah. They were saying this is actually pretty good. This dialogue is pretty okay. And I was laughing because I was so kind of tickled by the reality of it. But in the case of I'm the Pretty Thing, I got to sort of choose whoever I wanted. And I met a lot of people, and Ruth Wilson just, it's just the same thing I said about taste. It's you choose the right person. They're in front of you. And I met her for half an hour, Wow. And at the end of half an hour, she had to do it, and I had to have her do it. And it was just, perfect.
And the Netflix of it all,
Wait, you're going to skip the James Remar casting from The Warriors to February? All right.
James Remar was pretty good.
I'm curious about how Netflix is making movies.
Yeah. I'm curious too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, were they present? I mean, were they actively involved in the creative process?
Yeah. Did they show up on set at any point? Or?
They didn't have. Like I said, we sold February at Toronto, and then. Netflix came to my producer and me, and they said, "What do you got?" And I said, "I got this little thing, but I don't know if it's a movie. Honestly, it's like a script, but it's real small, and it's one person, and there's no dialogue in it." And it's they said, "Well, let's see it." And I think it took them a week to say yes, less than a week, and then gave us a bunch of money, honestly, and then didn't want me to change the script at all. And then
wow, this is like a dream.
Fine with whoever I wanted to cast. Didn't the whole foreign value and all that stuff, which was absolutely in play.
You didn't have to go by point systems, or oh my gosh.
No. I mean, for February we did, but for this, no. Wow. It's weird because they're able to sort of say that those 3 words that everybody wants. We trust you. We trust you. We saw you made a movie. We know you make a movie. Nothing's going to light on fire when you're making this movie. It's going to be delivered. It's going to be fine. We vetted your producer. He seems like he's on the up and up, and you have your thing, and the script is, we love it, and go ahead. And they didn't come to Canada. They didn't make me change the script. They approved everybody I cast. And at the very end of the process, at the end of the editing process, about 2 weeks before I locked picture, they had 5 notes, all really good. I'm surprised to say that too, because you do kind of, it's almost like you want the Netflix guys to be computer guys.
Right. Yeah. Why are they being so cool about this? Something's got to be up.
Exactly.
What's the agenda?
Exactly. What's going on? But in reality, it's no. They had 4 or 5 oh yeah, that helps. And they say things to you I say it's 88 minutes, guys, and they say, "Oh, it could be 82."
Wow.
And you're well, of course it could be 82. And in fact, it'll be a little bit better at 82, guys. And you turn it at 82, and they say, great.
Wow.
You know, side note regarding Netflix, it's really exciting to me now that this week Mike Flanagan just got announced that he's doing Gerald's Game, which he talked about on this show. Yep. But what's fun to me is I guess they announced it 2 days ago, and then today he posted the slate day one.
Yeah.
It's already happening. Cast everything. They're moving so fast on it. And
it had been in the works.
Had it?
Yeah, it had been in the works. I mean,
but still, now that we're
that's a
hearing
timed
about
press release. That's what they call a timed press release. I mean, when we were doing. We announced Benji. We were shooting Benji this week, but we've been shooting Benji for a
it's been going on for a while.
But when he was on the show, it hadn't, and he was still thinking, "I hope it happens one day." I remember, and that's only a couple months ago. So it is still a fast and to get
as
great
a project,
cast,
absolutely,
And that's a film. The other cool thing about Netflix, I think, and I'm looking forward to seeing your film as well, is it feels like that's one of those books I read when I heard he wanted to make it, and I was just like, oh fuck, man, this is so dark, and how do you show it? One character is half nude the entire film. There are flashbacks about incest. Who's going to do this? And then Netflix is who's going to do it, and it makes sense because they can take that risk because there's no risk. Right. There's no risk because everyone's already subscribing and spending their money. What a great model if you can work it.
And the language for the experience, when they say things they say to you in a meeting, they'll say, there's no barrier to entry. There's no barrier to exit. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? No barrier to entry. That means you can start watching the movie if you want, and you can stop watching the movie if you want. Yeah. You don't have to get a babysitter. You don't drive anywhere. You didn't pay money to do it. You want to watch it for 10 minutes? Watch it for 10 minutes. You want to watch it for an hour? Watch it. You want to never see it again? Don't bother. You want to, you know what I mean? You want to watch it over the course of a week? Do it. And so for me, what that meant as a filmmaker was, because there's no barrier to entry or exit to my movie, what that means ultimately artistically is I get 5, 10, 12 minutes, do whatever I want. Yeah. Because either the person is going to say, I want to stick with this, or they're going to say, fuck this. Yeah. But the people who say, I want to stick with this are the right people. They're in it sort of part and parcel with what I'm trying to do. So that's, you'll see the movie, it's it starts off you're either down or you're not. You're either down to fuck here or you're not.
Does the delivery at all, and I imagine it's not, but does the delivery of knowing where it's going to first screen on a smaller screen or, at all affect the way you shot the film in terms of the scale? Because the biggest disappointment to me with February, if people don't see that on a big screen, is the richest thing about it was a big screen film. And there's a moment, and it's not a big moment, it's not a horror moment or a spoiler, where I was completely sold on your movie, is it just cuts to a car driving at night, and the car is fucking small, and the shot is fucking huge, kind of like The Shining, but almost more gorgeous than the opening of Shining, in darkness, and I think you're just flying above it or whatever, and it made me go, whoa, there's a scale to this movie that would be lost if I was watching this at home on a computer. It's a rich cinematic piece. So knowing that a screen wasn't the first end point for the new film, did that at all affect you?
All that's to say, did you shoot for the small screen?
Yeah. Got to get there.
I mean, there was some talk between, Julie Kirkwood, who shot both movies. We had our moment early on of do we want to do this 2.35? Do we want to do this wide? Is that cool to do our really small movie, intimate movie with basically one character, really make a big space around her and shoot this wide? And ultimately it was no, because a lot of folks are going to watch us on their iPad. Mm-hmm. And wide like that, it's charming that we do it that way, but it's not
practical.
It's not right. Yeah. It's not going to translate. Yeah. So, but beyond that, I think the answer is ultimately no, because I think people's TVs are pretty fucking big.
Yeah, some people have great devices.
Yeah. And I think people watch it on their laptops, but I feel again, volume doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many people watch my movie. We'll never know. We'll never know how many people watch this movie. And honestly, on the one hand, you think that's not good, but on the other hand, it's why not? I got to make the movie I want to make. I'll go make a third movie now. It's it turned out pretty okay. A lot of people are going to start watching it. Some people are going to keep watching it. But it's, you don't sort of hedge your bet by making it small. You kind of just go for it.
Yeah.
So they don't track at all. They don't track, they have those figures.
They
you just
apparently have their figures, but they don't.
So they'll know what's working for them and where to invest. Okay.
And I guess that means where they'll sort of cycle it when you know. Chosen for you, like where that'll, it'll be the 15th
You watch
thing.
Luke Cage now. I am the pretty thing that lives in the house.
But does Netflix ever give you an idea of like how you're doing? Like you're the #1 download or not download, like view this week. Like did they give you status updates?
I think if it, not to sound craven about it, but I think if it benefits them, they would. They don't owe it to me.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be if
they'll just greenlight his next movie?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
What else you got?
Yeah, they're going to offer you another one if they went well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Flanagan's doing, I guess, so it makes sense.
I'm trying to decide if it matters. I'm trying to decide if it matters to them how many people watch my movie. I mean, ultimately, I suppose there's some metrics that does, but I don't. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not convinced that it fucking matters how many people watch my movie to them. I think it matters that it's on the platform, and I think it matters that it's on the platform. They're able to have sort of a prestigious movie that, killed at Toronto, and they're able to point and say, we don't just make that. We also we care. We make interesting small things.
I want to ask briefly about working with your brother, because you mentioned him earlier, and very talented musician, Elvis Perkins in Deerland, and I believe I read that he had never scored anything until February. And he did your new movie too, correct? So I mean, what was that dynamic, not like working with your brother on the creative process? Because I'm a huge score fan, and to me, music is very important.
Yeah. He'd never written any score before, and both scores are pretty idiosyncratic and pretty particular to us. And it was the kind of thing where, again, it's just I thought he could do it. I thought he could do it, and it had always been something I'd wanted to do. I always wanted to work on it with something, and the other thing about making a movie is no shit. You look for the people who are going to make you look good, right? You look for other departments who are going to score, because that's all I got. All I got is the other department heads. That's all I have.
Have you ever heard that Milos Forman quote? He goes, "I am excellent director because everyone I work with better than me."
Exactly.
And I'm like, that's it. That's the job.
True.
It's like, why wouldn't you hire the person who's going to make your shit better?
Yeah.
And so I just it just seemed right to me that Elvis would do that, and he hated it. He the first movie really almost killed him because he didn't know how, and he had never done it before, and he'd never written to time, and it had never here's the out. It had never been like, oh, this is the feeling that we need now. And I didn't do a lot of that with him. I didn't say this is the feeling that I need now. It was kind of, do what you think, bro, and let's hear it. And most of the time it was just exactly right, but he would stay up for 4 days in a row and call me and be like, I don't feel good. I'm like, yeah, well, you got to sleep. He's like, I can't sleep. It's like, it's due. And I'm like, yeah, it's due, but you don't die because it's due. And he ended up just writing some really great stuff that he was delivering to we were mixing the movie and he was delivering to the last minute.
How did you convince him to do the second one, then?
It's kind of the same thing. You're gonna, it's kind of like the older brother. You kind of want to do it. And he's like, no, I don't really. And I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, the script's pretty beautiful and it's kind of a poem, and it won't be as bad. And I'm like, well, I think I hear less instruments. I think it's like a quieter movie, man. I think there's going to be less that you need to do. And he's like, fine. And he did it, and then he won at Sundance. In the Vanguard category, they had best this and that. He won best score.
Wow! Is he a big film guy, like you, or does his music passion is much more?
It's his music. His music passion is his music passion, and he's so creative and he's so inventive and he's so kind of funny. He has an incredible sense of humor, and that I think allows him to be really sort of textured in what he does. And so there's a lot of sort of you have to listen really hard to it. You have to be walked through it. But there's a lot of sort of funny qualities to the music in February, and there's a lot of sort of winks in it. And the "I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House" score has that too. There's a lot of sort of you'd never know it, but I can tell he enjoys it.
And how far ahead are you in terms of what's next? I mean, do you have multiple projects that you're writing simultaneously, or do you kind of focus on one at a time?
One at a time.
Yeah.
I wish I was more prolific or something. I'm not. I'm not one of these people who's like, I got 10 things going, or like I got more ideas because they're coming out of my ears. It's like, no, I get invested in one thing that I let come to me, and as wishy-washy again as that sounds, that's That's creation, right? Creation is like you put it out there into the universe. Here's the thing I think that it is, guys.
Yeah. Catching the big fish.
Yeah, and guys,
exactly.
And guys is the constellation of gods and whoever that's out there, the muses and whoever. And you say, this is what I think it is, guys. Help me out. Give me some kind of indication that it's right, that it's worth a shit. And then you sort of start, and you're like, like every jackass thinks like the Michelangelo thing. I just get the slab of marble, the statue's inside. And
it tells me what it is.
It's inside. It's inside. I just take away the stuff that isn't the statue. And so to some degree, like you sit down and, you get a notion and then you're like, I think that might be right. And for me, what happens, and it's fucking weird, is I'll start listening to a lot of music to go with the movie. And the movie that I'm writing now, it takes place in the 50s. And so I listen to a lot of sort of doo-wop and stuff like that. And like that's the mode that I'm in. And what'll happen is I'll have a day of like, oh, fucking writing. I don't like it very much. And you write, fucking writing. And then you'll go for a drive, and then you'll go to a Starbucks or a coffee bean or something, you walk in, and the song is playing. And it's always like, it happens to me all the time. Yeah. And it's just like that indication of like, yeah, thanks, gang, universe, constellation of gods and muses. Like, you notice that I'm trying to do something. Thanks for the gesture of playing the Chantels for me when I walked into, Burger King.
Now, are you reading other work for, adaptations and things for you not as a writer, or are you really trying to, stay kind of auteurist mode?
I read a lot of things and a lot of material, and every once in a while something is like, that's pretty cool. But what happens a lot of the time is that you sort of come down on the place of like, I could do my own, like the path to doing my own thing right now seems like it's pretty open. Like it seems like the world is pretty agreeable to me doing what I want to do next. And so like more of my thing. And so the quality becomes like, well, unless someone's going to pay me $15 million, all of a sudden I'm going to be getting like, Christopher Nolan money. Then the reality is like everything's going to be kind of the same money-wise. Like not to be, again, craven about it, but like everything's going to be kind of the same money-wise. So shouldn't I just do my own thing? Like, shouldn't I do my thing?
Well, that said, I would love to talk about your flirtation with Friday the 13th.
What?
Which did hit the web.
Am I allowed to talk of this? Yeah.
Wait.
Well, it hit the web because of me, though.
What's the timeline, though?
Did you get in trouble for it?
No, actually, I didn't get in trouble for it.
Because you said it in very loose terms, but you were. Let's just clarify. One of many.
Wait, pre or post Bruckner stuff? Yeah, because I remember he was attached forever.
Well, that I'm curious about. Was it before the Prisoners guy was brought in to?
No, it was that script and it was that project and it was recent and sort of like to my surprise, I really wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I really wanted to do that because Jason was my guy. Like we all have our guys, and my guy was Jason. And so there was a moment of like, yeah, I want to make a studio movie. Yeah, I want to make a Jason movie. It's the 13th movie. It's like, yeah, they're kind of bringing back the 1980 vibe. And yeah, it's like camp counselors in their shorts and things. And I want to do like a lot of stuff in tanks with swimming and things. And, I kind of loved the idea of it. And, it's just the kind of thing where they're only going to choose one person. And it just in this case, like it just wasn't me. I don't think that it was my pitch. I don't think it was this or that. I think that you can make a scary movie out of it. I think you can still make a scary movie, and I think you can still make a scary movie at a studio level. Yeah. Whether or not that's what is sort of the mandate, that's kind of none of my business. All I know is that like this is the Friday the 13th movie I would have liked to have made. It's not going to be that one.
Yeah.
Wait, and it's not even being made right now, right? That script, even that's kind of been delayed, right?
Delayed.
As far as we know. As far as last I heard, it was like even that might be.
Well, they put Brett Eisner on it to direct it. Right. It was supposed to be. I don't know. I haven't been following the legal thing that Victor Miller has been up against.
Oh yeah, no, because of the title,
the lawsuit, and all that stuff. Yeah.
Are there any other franchises like that? I mean, not seriously, but like were there ones that you like? Oh, it'd be interesting. Hellraiser's an interesting world, or of those kind of things that ever let you.
It was kind of Jason. It was Jason kind of just like it's like Santa Claus for me. Like Jason.
Wait, no one's done Jason Claus. I mean,
There's
who
your
wouldn't
plot.
watch that?
Listen, this show has become nothing but pitches from Predator Purge to
Predator
Jason
Purge
Claus.
is good.
Predator
That's a
Purge
good
is
pitch.
Last week,
amazing.
I was pitching Predator coming down on Purge Day
That's
and
pretty
trying
cool.
to mix the things.
That's pretty cool.
Everyone's on.
Jason Claus.
But Jason
Jason
Santa's all you,
Claus.
baby.
Jason Claus.
Somebody
is
is going to make movie posters for all of these.
Well,
One
I'm
of our
thinking
listeners.
Jason versus
So-
Krampus, to be perfectly honest. Now that Krampus is back in the...
Everyone wants Jason in the snow.
I was thinking
Boom.
Jason v. Billy.
Billy?
It's right there.
Yeah.
It's there for you.
That's usually the sign that things are coming to an end.
Yeah. Elric starts
We're
pitching.
getting silly.
It's time to wrap it up. But Oz, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Everybody stay tuned for Blackcoat's Daughter when it comes out next year. In the meantime, check out I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House.
October 28th on Netflix.
On Netflix.
And if you happen to be taking a trip to England, watch the fuck out of February now.
Stay with
Yes,
somebody
exactly.
that has Netflix
Stay in and chill. You know, just
Netflix and chill.
Netflix and chill.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.